They use the chilly night as an excuse to sip something warm. Meanwhile, something stirs in the forest, but the group doesn't notice. Except for one guy, he senses something's off. His coffee shakes as the ground trembles. Someone alerts them that an emoji is on the way. A giant serpent is closing in. The command is given. Every member of the extermination squad must gear up for battle. It's the first time a legendary ranked monster has shown up in the world. The creature uses a fear-inducing mental power on the group. To keep everyone together, the leader tells them to stay calm and hold their ground. A new message pops up saying they've resisted the fear. This is the extermination squad made up of the top players, and our protagonist is one of them. With the buffer's help, our hero activates his skills. But strangely, he's only level 1. The hero is set to fight. Without a second thought, he charges at the creature. The impact triggers an explosion of energy. Meet Choi Hyun-sung. He's a 26-year-old who's taking a break from the grind. Just 3 years ago, he was your typical student. Then his dad got hit with mana reflux syndrome. This all started when an interdimensional portal showed up. Since then, humanity's been dealing with a whole new set of problems. The biggest twist? People started getting magical powers. Sounds cool, right? But for many, it's more of a curse than a blessing. These portals unleashed monster hordes that tore through humanity. Plus, new diseases popped up that nobody could cure. But those who awakened their powers? They were the ones who stepped up to tackle these issues. Defeating monsters also meant scoring valuable loot. So, these players ended up rolling in wealth. But for our guy, these portals only brought trouble. His dad's illness came from a super rare monster, and the treatment costs were sky high. His mom had to juggle 2 jobs. His sister blew through her wedding savings and picked up a part-time gig. Money problems became unavoidable. He can't shake the feeling that life would be easier if he'd awakened his own powers. Choi Hyun-sung can crush massive rocks with his bare hands. He can leap over buildings in a single bound. His dream has always been to become a player. After a long day at work, Choi heads home. He collapses onto his bed, exhausted. They say players earn ridiculous amounts of money, but nobody knows how to awaken. It's like hitting the jackpot. Choi thinks it's impossible for him, yet he still clings to that dream. Now, becoming a player isn't just a dream, it's a necessity. If it were easy, everyone would do it. He tries to shake off those thoughts. Suddenly, out of nowhere, world around him shifts, and a HUD screen pops up in front of him. The message says he's awakened. Choi recalls hearing about someone who had a heart attack after winning the lottery. He commands the status window to open, hoping his stats are decent. But what he sees is bizarre. His stats should be at least 10, but they're not. It's all about luck, and it looks like he's in for a tough ride. Joy quickly turns to despair. The total of all attributes needs to hit at least 40. Choi Hyun-sung tallies up everything he's got, and it only adds up to 18 points. The average player has around 50, but for some reason, our guy's total is way below that. The only upside is that every time he levels up, he gets 5 more points. To even reach a basic player's level, he's gonna have to grind through a ton of levels. Plus, he doesn't have any passive or active skills at all. Even low-level players would be in demand if they had decent skills. Guilds would be all over them. Most players start off choosing between tank, warrior, or healer classes, but there's one exception. Kim Hannah has been backed by high-level players since she was young, thanks to her unique skills. She's the only buffer in all of Korea. Meanwhile, a lot of players can't even get past the early stages. Yet, even with all that, our hero's never heard of anyone going 19 years without any skills. Choi Hyun-sung is intrigued by what he's seeing, but he's already thinking it probably won't be worth the effort. A massive list unfolds in front of him, with a rare elven sword right at the top. As he examines it more closely, he spots other weapons of the same caliber. Our guy is blown away by this, but he quickly realizes these items are worth a fortune. He starts wondering if there's a way to turn that into regular money. But then he remembers he's got 2 billion points to burn. Maybe he can use that stash in the game. On top of that, he discovers some legendary rank weapons. He had no idea these even existed. People only knew about heroic level at best. Choi Hyun-sung picks one to check it out. But the Demon King's staff is a mystery with no details available. Plus, it says regular players can't get their hands on this weapon. For some odd reason, his coins don't work for this category. On top of that, there's a locked item that's a notch above the heroic rank. Choi Hyun-sung scrolls all the way down the list and stumbles upon the elixir. Rumor has it this potion can cure any illness. It looks like this system wants our hero to start making deals. Usually, the wealthy are more into tanking skills, so he decides to scope out those options. Our guy stumbles upon a potion that boosts attributes. He's immediately intrigued by these items. He's thinking they might be worth buying to flip for profit later. With the right strategy, he could become insanely powerful. The item is this tiny red stone, and it's kind of funny that you're supposed to eat it. Once he swallows it, his muscles tense up instantly. It only boosts power by 1, but the feeling is way more intense than expected. He picks up a skill book that cuts mana use by 10%. Now he's got to figure out where to stash the book. Choi Hyun-sung decides to log it in the sales tab, but then he finds out the system takes a 20% cut of all sales. Even though he thinks it's a total ripoff, he knows there's no other choice. It's time for him to kick off his plan. First up, he's buying more strength-boosting items. After a while, his desk is piled high with stat gems. Later on, a receptionist asks how she can assist him. He tells her he's there to register because he's awakened, but she finds it a bit odd. She questions if he really managed to awaken. Choi Hyun-sung thinks her reaction is strange. The woman tells him that nobody his age has ever awakened their powers this late in life. Our hero is totally confused by what she's saying. That's when he catches a glimpse of himself. His reflection, oddly enough, shows an old man staring back. A security guard comes over to assist the elderly man on the ground. Choi Hun-sung realizes that nothing in life comes without a cost. He opens his window. That's when he notices his points are decreasing. Turns out, those points represent his life expectancy. Now, our hero is back home, reflecting on everything that's happened. After doing some quick calculations, he figures out he has roughly a year and a half left, so he needs to find a way to earn more points. He comes up with the idea to sell his stuff. Choi Hun-sung decides to start with his Nintendo. First, he checks if the console is working. The screen prompts him to place the video game into a floating image. When he touches the console to it, it vanishes into thin air. At that moment, the Nintendo shows up for sale in the system. Looks like it worked perfectly. He decides to take a gamble and list it at a much steeper price, hoping the 40 games included will seal the deal. The Nintendo gets registered successfully. Now, Choi Hun-sung is debating whether he should put more items up for sale. Meanwhile, a girl surrounded by treasures is feeling frustrated because the shop keeps listing the same old stuff every day. She thinks there should be more competition among the sellers. Just then, a new item pops up in the store. Without a second thought, she rushes to snag it. Choi Hun-sung is finally getting back to his usual self. This not only shows how crucial those points were to him, but it also means he can reclaim them whenever he needs to. The current puzzle is that the girl has no clue what to do with these items. She examines a watch curiously, noticing the numbers change on their own. She can't figure out why it's considered rare, yet she's convinced it is. Another thing she notices is a screen asking for mobile data. Apparently, she's never used a cell phone before either. Even after tinkering with it, she can't connect to the internet. She's clueless about how this gadget works, but after messing with it a bit more, she stumbles upon something intriguing. It's a kind of mirror magic. While exploring the video features, she finds something amusing and decides to hit the button. What pops up on the screen catches her off guard. The video adds a funny effect, placing a hat on her head. She pauses, debating whether to go through with her plan. The girl snaps a selfie, and it seems she digs it because she goes back for more shots. The one who's not thrilled is the demon woman. She had hoped to snag all the items herself, but someone else beat her to it. Now, she's stuck trying to figure out what these things do. She even tries using magic to get a hint, but nothing comes of it. Even after booting up the video game, she doesn't sense any magic from it. Without realizing it, the girl gets sucked in and plays for hours until she finally hits she's not thrilled about it at all, and she loses it, furious about losing again. Meanwhile, in the city, Choi Kun-sung finds himself standing in front of a car, but he can't put the vehicle up for sale because only items owned by the player can be sold. He's stuck. Frustrated, he decides to just walk away. On his way out, he spots some random stuff lying around. Oddly enough, he can list a broken fan for sale. Maybe only certain items are eligible, and there's a cap of 10 items that can be listed in the store at once. Choi Kun-sung checks the sales menu, but he ends up with fewer points than he started with. Things are looking grim, as nobody's buying anything from him. Then, a new notification pops up. It says there's a complaint under Choi Kun-sung's name about the products he sold, and if it happens again, he'll be banned. This is a total surprise for him. Choi Kun-sung had no clue such a system was in place. Now, his top priority is slashing his prices ASAP. Just then, a notification comes in saying all his listed items have been sold. The stress about nobody buying his stuff vanishes instantly. So, our hero decides to hike up the prices even more. And of course, another complaint rolls in, that 70% of the items are considered defective, so his account might get temporarily suspended until it's sorted out. Apparently, the complaints are about a cell phone that randomly shuts off. The person doesn't realize they need to plug it in to recharge. More messages flood in about cigarettes, beer, and other everyday items that the person just can't figure out how to use, and they're threatening our guy if he doesn't replace them. But Choi Kun-sung can't even catch a break before more threatening messages hit his inbox. As a result, his store privileges get suspended for 3 days. But if he doesn't resolve these issues, he'll be out of action for 3 months. He's thinking about sending a new cell phone with a charger first. He's even considering that maybe his customers aren't from Earth, which explains why they don't get how things work. Choi Kun-sung starts to seriously wonder if they're aliens. Maybe selling more electronic gadgets isn't such a bad idea. So, our hero decides to check out an online store. The prices are super low, but it seems like Choi Kun-sung is short on cash. As he checks his pockets, he finds just a few coins. He's even thinking about selling his skill book since he's out of auction options. But then, the protagonist gets a bright idea. He pulls out his phone, and time starts ticking away. Over at the construction site, the workers are in disbelief at what they're witnessing. Choi Kun-sung is hauling 3 bags of cement all by himself, no sweat. People are even praising him for it. A worker asks where our hero used to work. He awkwardly says he's just used to it. 3 days fly by. There's only 9 seconds left before the suspension ends. Koi Kansa is on edge with anticipation. Finally, the restriction is lifted. It's time to put new items up for sale. But just then, a new complaint pops up. The boy is visibly anxious. Before he can even check the complaint, another message shows up. Out of the 20 items sold, every single one got a complaint, meaning he's suspended for another 3 days. Basically, someone filed a complaint against each of his products. One message is from someone furious about a video game that stopped working, and now they're so mad they're ready to track down our hero. More messages from this person keep flooding in, demanding he either list new items for sale or replace the broken ones. But Shreddy Kansa doesn't even have a moment to react and fix the issue. Once again, he's hit with a 3-day suspension, and if he doesn't sort this out fast, that suspension will stretch into 3 months. Over at the construction site, folks are still in disbelief that a young guy can be that strong. To him, this buyer is definitely out of control. So, he plans to list a pair of batteries for sale. Finally, his account gets unlocked. He quickly puts his item up for sale. And just like that, it's sold. First, he gets a notice that 14 complaints have been resolved. Soon after, 4 more vanish too. His points start shooting up. Shreddy Kansa is pumped about his success. With everything sorted out, he's already planning to list more phones or consoles for sale. But before diving into that, there's something else he needs to handle. Maybe it's about time he registers as a player. To get a registration card, you have to complete a 3-week course at a training school. If you fail, you can try again. But fail twice, and you lose the chance to register. Just because someone awakens doesn't mean they'll automatically become a dungeon hunting player. Troy Kansa breezes through the test without any issues, and he gets a round of applause for acing it so easily. However, one player thinks her hero shouldn't graduate since he doesn't even have a skill. The girl feels it's harsh to say that, but the guy couldn't care less. Troy Kansa already expected things like this to happen. 3 weeks later, our hero is leaving the school. A group from his class invites him to join them for a celebration. One of the guys even suggests they all go out for drinks. But Troy says he needs to head home for personal reasons. The group seems a bit disappointed, but Troy Kansa doesn't mind since they'll probably never meet again. The receptionist lets him know his card is ready. Our guy is feeling pretty proud of himself. He's finally got his hero license in hand. Now he can sell that skill book. With the money he earns from hunting, he'll soon be able to help his dad get better. At the equipment rental shop, Troy Kansa goes on a shopping spree. He swipes his credit card to pay for it all. The clerk mentions that there's a penalty if he returns the gear late, but wishes him good luck. Sadly, everything in this world comes with a hefty price tag. Even renting basic gear is super pricey. Without it, the guild won't let him near any dungeons, and there's also an entry fee for every mission. In the plaza, some groups are shouting out for new party members. One group promises to cover dungeon fees and keep everyone safe. There's a huge demand for tanks and healers. Makes sense, right? Even in low-level dungeons, a monster's still a monster. Checking out his status window, you can see our guy has seriously leveled up his attributes and that unique skill of his, along with his knack for buying and selling items. With those stats, he could easily join any team, but that's not what he's after. His game plan? Hunt down the rabbits solo and act like he earned that special ability fair and square, even though he bought it. Troy Kansa makes his way to one of the portals. A staff member asks if he's really going in by himself, and he confirms it. After that, they give him the green light to go through. Our guy knows the staff member is probably thinking he's nuts for tackling a dungeon solo. I mean, even seasoned players don't do that. This isn't just a game, it's a real danger zone. People can actually lose their lives in these battles. Even one of the guards can't believe someone would have the guts to try it. The guard mutters that arrogant folks need to learn the hard way. Now he's inside the dungeon. It's a dark cave, with only torches providing some light. Right off the bat, he spots someone. A group is in the middle of fighting a horned rabbit. Our main guy definitely didn't see a creature that huge coming. So, right off the bat, Troy Kansa decides to just hang back and watch. The leader of the group calls for some action. The creature charges straight at the hero with the shield. For a second, it seems like he might hold his ground, but then his defense gets blown away. Someone yells for everyone to attack together. Even though they took a 3-month course, these folks were just regular people not too long ago. That's why it's almost impossible for them to take down a monster. After getting healed, the tank is back on his feet. The rabbit takes a hit right to the face. That's when the group tries to seize the moment. Troy Kansa suddenly realizes he underestimated the dungeon just because it seemed easy. One of the warriors goes for a lucky shot. The rabbit tries to defend itself, but it's no use. Fortunately, the sword lands perfectly. Finally, the monster is down for the count. Troy Kansa notes that it took him 8 minutes, while others took at least 3. Meanwhile, the guards are totally ignoring the chaos. Their badges show they're supposed to be security officers. Apparently, they only step in if someone's life is on the line. So, he doesn't need to stress about the guards. His stats are more than enough for him to handle things solo. Troy Kansa kicks on his stealth mode. He practically disappears into the shadows. A group is cheering on some other players. They're the assistant and healer from the top guild, Sue. To boost her spirits, a healer tells her partner they'll definitely find what they're after. The assistant smiles, feeling reassured by the encouragement. The other assistants promise to report anything they spot right away, but the girl just thanks them to be polite. They insist her skills are more than enough to catch what she's after, but the assistant doesn't seem entirely convinced. They both end up apologizing at the same time. Looks like the girls are anxious because they've been hunting for 15 days straight. The assistant's goal is to advance to the 4th class. To do that, she needs to find the horned rabbit's boss. Even though it's a weak monster, it's incredibly elusive. Still, she vows to take it down the moment it shows up. The two activate their shadow cloaks and head deeper into the dungeon. Jason asks her partner if she's heard the latest rumors. She mentions that the leader of Team 3 and the support from Team 2 are at the supply warehouse. Before she can spill more tea, they both notice something lurking in the darkness. Someone is moving stealthily among the shadows. Ani admits she was going to ignore it, but now she sees it too. Jason wonders if the guy is lost or just ditched his group. The assistant examines the adventurer closely. She figures he can't be lost since he looks completely unharmed. So the question remains, why is he flying solo? Ani spots something even more intriguing. The guy's rocking rental gear. He's just a rookie, wandering around on his own. They both think he's got to be a fool. To take on one of those creatures alone, you should be at least level 35. But then, they eat their words. With a single strike, our hero is trembling. He hates that it's necessary for his family, but this isn't his first rodeo. He's hunted plenty already, but still hasn't scored any items. Our guy goes stealth mode again, sneaks up on another rabbit, and takes it down. But man, he really doesn't like doing it. The girls are puzzled. Jason notices her partner is on edge. Ani is lost in her thoughts. She's recalling the 20 level rule. If you hunt a monster near your level, you get the usual experience and loot. But if it's 20 levels below you, you get zilch. Basically, the chances of not getting a single item are sky high. That's why Ani figures this must be the guy's first time here. Jason wonders if her partner knows him, but she doesn't have a clue who he is either. Still, right now, she's just curious to watch him a bit longer. After all, she's got nothing better to do. Choi Hyun-sun triggers and it looks like luck's finally on his side. A gem drops at last. It's the 5th one he's snagged. But our protagonist never thought leveling up would be such a grind. After taking down so many monsters, he figured he'd have leveled up by now. Imagine if life had an experience bar like in video games, things would be so much simpler. Our guy is hoping that just one more hour will do the trick. But after grinding for 5 hours, he's still stuck at the same level. Something's definitely off here. Normally, it takes people no more than 2 days to level up. Yeah, our hero is starting to realize something's not adding up. Jason mentions that the vibe feels really heavy. Choi Hyun-sun is super bummed out. Over the last 10 days, he's racked up more than 100 million points. Yet, after a whole day of hunting, he only managed to snag 100 points. Still, he's trying to keep his spirits up. Suddenly, one of the rabbits tries to sneak up on him, but our hero takes it down with just one hit. Choi Hyun-sun gets back on his feet, ready for the next wave. A bunch of rabbits is charging at him. He's gearing up for another attack. With a single swing, he wipes out all the monsters in one go. You can tell he's already feeling worn out. One rabbit leaps at him. He swiftly takes it out with ease. Right after that, he gets a new message. He earns the title of Rabbit Hunter for taking down 100 of those critters solo. Choi Hyun-sun pauses for a moment to assess the situation. His new title is now visible in his status window. Thanks to this title, he gets 2 special attributes, a boost in vitality, and a shot at ranking up to rare. This title is pretty common, and technically, anyone can snag it, but most folks level up before they get the chance. So, hardly anyone ends up with this title. It's actually pretty sweet to have a chance to rank up to rare because of it. Uni is having a blast. She's thrilled about catching a big fish. The assistant witnessed him nail a rabbit's throat with one strike. Maybe it was just luck, but she saw him pull it off multiple times. Guy took down the monsters with a single blow. She's really eager to recruit our hero. The protagonist is debating whether he should venture deeper into the dungeon. But then Choi Hyun-sun hears 2 people calling his name. He spots 2 players decked out in custom gear and top-tier armor. Jasun assures him there's no need to worry. They're security officers. But he seems skeptical. So, our guy didn't spot any badges and couldn't sense anyone around either. Jasun fills him in that they were tasked with guarding the portal's interior, and were just heading out. Since both of them were using stealth skills, that's why he couldn't detect them. But seriously, he didn't even catch a whisper of their breathing, let alone their approach. The girl mentioned she came over because she thought his talents were too good to be wasted on just hunting rabbits. But since he's still level 1, our main guy is worried about getting exposed. If he's obligated to show them anything. The assistant says no, she's just curious because they're from the Sewol Guild. The name rings a bell for our protagonist. They're one of the top groups in Korea. She offers to help him join the group, and all he has to do is show his status window. Our guy's in a bind because he's got a penalty that's stopping him from leveling up. Choi Hyun-sun thinks a player with stats like his will raise eyebrows, and no matter how much he grinds, his level stays the same. Our hero makes it clear he has no plans to join any guild. He turns his back on her and starts to walk away. The protagonist looks a bit surprised by her sudden reaction. The girl asks if he really doesn't know about the Sewol Guild. He replies that he does know who they are. So she asks why he still refuses to join them. He explains that he doesn't like being tied down and doesn't need a guild right now. She even questions if he's already part of another team, but he insists that he prefers to go solo. It seems like the 2 girls believe his explanation. Choi Hyun-sun says goodbye to them, but hands him her card just in case he changes his mind. He takes it and decides to head out. Before he leaves, she asks if they can exit together. She thinks it would be easier for everyone, but he declines any contact with other players. Ani finds his behavior quite rude. Her friend comments that he might act like this now, but he'll regret it someday. Our protagonist realizes he needs to be more careful, but then something grabs his attention. They're still stuck in the dungeon. Choi Hyun-sung makes his way to a taxi stand. Once inside the cab, the driver asks where he's headed. Hyun-sung just tells him to start driving. He checks the route on his phone. Then he asks the driver to take him to the Fox dungeon. The taxi driver congratulates him, mentioning he drives so many players that he knows all the routes by heart. But Hyun-sung tunes him out. All he can think about is how his status will probably stay the same in this new dungeon. In this new area, it's pretty much the same scene. Crowds are looking for party members. The vibe here is unchanged. Just like before, he heads straight for the gate. When it's time for check-in, the attendant asks about his party, and Hyun-sung says he's solo again. And that's how he enters the dungeon. Inside, there's a fox with sharp fangs. A group of players surrounds the creature. Hyun-sung just watches. He notices something familiar, just like in the last dungeon. The guards are completely indifferent, so our guy sneaks by using his stealth skill. He makes it down to the lower level. Sword in hand, he's all set for battle. This time, he's sure things will go smoothly. Choi Hyun-sung charges straight at the beast. He spots that one of them is worth 180 points. He swings his sword, ready to wrap this up fast. With a single strike, the foxes drop lifeless. Then, he notices something else. More foxes are closing in, slowly surrounding him. He starts to wonder if he needs to get serious about this fight. He checks and sees his count has reached 299. After taking down 13 foxes, Choi Hyun-sung earns a new title, just like before. But our guy was already expecting that. He asks to pull up his status window. Turns out, his level hasn't changed, but his strength got a boost by 1. Looks like each title offers something unique. He's already surrounded by a big pack of foxes. Choi Hyun-sung is all set to kick off the second phase of his experiment. Hours after the battle, he's earned a rare title and receives the Blood Fox Predator. This time, he's thrilled to have leveled up. Besides gaining an extra point in strength, he learns that above rare is the heroic rank. Choi Hyun-sung takes a breather, but he's eager to dive back in the next day. He stashes the gems in his bag before heading out. On his way, he stumbles upon something. The skill hardens the body, but a note says he already knows it, so he can't buy the book. He's bummed about this. So, he lists it for sale at a ridiculously high price, as usual, but ends up buying another book instead. Finally, he makes his way back to the surface. The dungeon receptionist asks him to drop any items he got into the basket. He slips the skill book into his bag. Right after, the guy checks him out. When he sees the number of magic stones, he's blown away. And he's even more amazed when he spots the rare skill book. If there's an issue, at the base, they scan the magic stones. The total value comes to 39,000 Ries. And once the books are sold, the company will reach out to him. Feeling satisfied, the protagonist heads out. At this rate, he figures he can pull in at least 1 million Ries a day. Being a player really does pay off. The next day, our guy takes a break to grab some food. He thinks about whether it'd be smarter to rent a place closer to the dungeon, since his house is pretty far away. What really matters is that today, he's leveling up his title. Inside the cave, another fox meets its end. Our hero takes it down without breaking a sweat. A heroic achievement for soloing 5,000 foxes. A new message pops up saying he's the first to snag a heroic rank title. He didn't expect to be the first to achieve this. Even though it feels a bit like cheating, it's still a win. His points skyrocket to a total of 100, and all attributes get a boost of at least 20. Choi Kun-san stumbles upon something interesting. It turns out you can actually rank up a title to legendary status. Our hero ponders if it's worth giving it a shot. Right now, he's worn out. He vows to tackle it tomorrow. Fast forward 10 days, and our hero has checked into a hotel and is grabbing a bite. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, he takes down another pack of foxes. This unlocks a new achievement. At last, he's hit the legendary rank. Choi Kun-san is so exhausted he just collapses. On the screen, there's another big boost. This time our hero can't help but laugh. He's feeling pretty proud of himself. Just to make sure, he checks if this is the highest the title can go. Sadly, since he was hoping for more, Choi Kun-san prepares to head out. He's not too worried about it, because there are other places where he can pull off the same feat. Choi Kun-san is up against a group of monsters. One of them tries to sneak up on him from behind, but our hero counters with the hilt of his sword, and that alone sends it crashing into the wall. So, it turns out our main guy has leveled up to the point where he can take down these beasts with just his fists. He's calling it quits. Back at the hotel, Choi Kun-san gets a notification that the stuff he put up for sale has been sold, but he needs to pick up the money in person. He decides to swing by the auction house. The receptionist asks him to double-check all the paperwork before he signs anything. That's when he gets hit with the shocking news that the auction house took a whopping 42% cut from each item sold. Even he can't believe it, so he decides to stop selling his books to them. He knows he needs to hunt wisely, since he's already made 10 million just from magic stones, and it's not a stretch to think he could hit 1 billion with his online sales doing well. If he keeps this up, he'll snag that elixir sooner than he thought. As he's walking down the street, Choi Kun-san takes a look at his outfit. Ever since his dad collapsed, he hasn't bought a single new piece of clothing. Just like his family, he simply couldn't afford it. But that's changing today. A group is busy putting parts together. At 7 p.m., their shift wraps up. The leader gives everyone a shout-out for their hard work. Some workers wave goodbye to a woman who heads out alone. Choi Kun-san calls out to his mom. She's thrilled to see her son. When he hugs her, he notices how frail she feels. His mom asks why he's visiting. He tells her he just wanted to see her. She seems genuinely happy to hear that. Like any mom, she checks if he's had dinner yet. He says no because he wants to eat with her, but she says she can't join him. She's got to head to her second job. She pulls out some cash, hands it to him, and tells him to grab himself something to eat. Choi Kun-san knows she hasn't eaten either, which is why he wants her to come along. But she insists she only eats while working at the restaurant. He offers to help her out, but she turns him down. Finally, he decides to spill the beans. He tells her that he's awakened. His mom looks totally stunned. She even asks him to repeat himself. Choi Kun-san flashes his hero license and says he's officially a player now, so she can quit her job at the restaurant. Her first reaction is, it's too dangerous. Our guy reassures her that he's careful, but the main thing is she doesn't have to work there anymore. But she pushes back, saying being a player doesn't guarantee a steady income, and she's heard you spend more than you earn at first. Choi Kun-san gets it, but he shows her exactly how much he made. She checks out the document, and sees her son raked in 1 billion yen. With that cash, he hopes she'll quit her job, cover the hospital bills, and they can finally relax a bit. She burst into tears right away. Troy-kun-san tells her to stop crying, since his parents have always taken care of him. Now it's their time to kick back. All his mom can say is thank you. Later on, she introduces her son to the restaurant staff, and he even jumps in to help out, which he helps everyone wrap up work early that night. At the end of the evening, they all say goodbye and head home together. His sister greets their mom when she gets home, but it's Troy-kun-san who responds, excited to see her. The girl is puzzled about why he suddenly appeared, but the protagonist assures her there's a good reason. Them gather, and our hero announces he's awakened. He's earned a nice chunk of cash. His sister watches as the money stacks up day by day until it hits $1 billion. She can hardly believe her eyes. Troy-kun-san promises they won't have to work so hard anymore. His sister can't hold back her tears. She confesses that things have been really tough lately. That night, Troy-kun-san goes to bed with a smile. The protagonist tells them he's heading out, and his mom asks when he'll be back. He replies he'll return only when she quits her job. His mom worries about him going out in regular clothes, but our hero reassures her he can grab gear near the dungeons. With that, he bids farewell and heads off to tackle his next mission. The protagonist's mom tries to reach out to her son, but her calls just go straight to voicemail. She's really hoping he hasn't gotten into any trouble. Just then, Troy-kun-san shows up, sprinting. The kid explains he ditched the traffic and came on foot. His mom gives him a playful smack on the head, relieved but worried. In the hospital room, his dad is lying in bed. Seeing his dad like that, Troy-kun-san makes a promise to himself. 10 days later, our protagonist earns the legendary title for hunting down 10,000 rabbits. He checks his watch and sees it's still early, giving him a few more hours to hunt. But unlike the others, it's completely deserted. The sign reads, Vampire Bat Dungeon, recommended for levels 10 to 15. He heard these bats are normal-sized and only move in groups. Normally, taking them on without a full party is tough. Troy-kun-san sneaks through the portal with stealth mode on. The guards chatting nearby didn't even notice him slip by. He finds this whole setup pretty odd, but he's all set for the hunt. With that, he activates a protective shield around himself. To bait the bats into attacking, he pricks his own finger. As soon as they catch the scent, the creatures charge. It feels like the darkness itself is rushing toward him. A swirling mass of shadows and wings engulfs our hero. Inside the shield, he fires up a fireball spell. The light shows the bats desperately trying to break through the barrier, but the weak flame also reveals that our guy is struggling to juggle two skills at once. He concentrates to boost the flame's intensity. A dungeon filled with such tiny creatures is proving to be quite a hassle. In the end, that's the best he can manage with his fire magic right now. The fireball shoots through the barrier, setting off an explosion in the cave. The blast is so powerful that it wipes out all the bats in one go. The barrier ends up with cracks. Even the caster didn't expect it to turn out like this. Another wave of bats comes flying straight at him. Troy-kun-san is already gearing up for another fire spell. The bats zoom toward him at full speed. He hurls a fireball right at them. Immediately after, he gets a notification about a new achievement. If everything goes smoothly, he might even snag the legendary one today. But more crucial is figuring out how many magic stones our hero can gather. In the darkness, the protagonist spots something unusual. Hidden among the shadows is a sword shaped like a bat. Even he didn't see this coming. Apparently, the mana from all those bats created this weapon. Troy-kun-san picks the sword up off the ground. He gets a message saying the sword has a passive ability to restore health by absorbing enemy energy. The protagonist really digs this effect, but he's mostly curious about whether it's possible to get more than one of these swords. Our hero figured out that even if the monsters are weak, if a bunch of them goes down at once, their mana can merge to create a rare item. So just imagine if a whole group of rare monsters were taken out at once. A week goes by, and our hero starts to see that this might be tougher than he thought. Just the usual gems are scattered on the ground. After the blade, the mana only fused one more time, and now the item is stashed in his bag. It's a black cloak with decent durability, but it's only rare in name, not in reality. The protagonist decides to call off this hunt. It's smarter to hit up another dungeon and snag some new titles. His mom checks in to see if he's doing alright, since they're shelling out a lot of cash for a new house. But our hero assures her he won't go overboard. When the customers come in, the attendant welcomes them. Troy-kun-san mentions they had a phone conversation. The attendant remembers he's after a 1,000 square meter apartment, but his mom thinks that's way too much. Still, the protagonist insists on giving each of them their own room. His sister is amazed at how huge the apartment is. It's her first time seeing the new place. She's super excited. The protagonist promises that their next home will be even bigger, but for her, this one's already perfect. Their mom cooks the first meal in the new house. His sister suggests they bring some welcome rice cakes to the neighbors. Their mom thinks it's a great idea. Troy-kun-san watches this and finds it heartwarming. He wishes his dad could be there next time, and he's determined to make that happen. Now, it's off to the Crimson Rat Dungeon for players between levels 6 and 10. The rats get ready to attack, but our guy dodges their strikes with a leap. While in the air, he finds the whole scene kinda funny. He then kicks off the cave walls. These rats are quicker than he thought, but with one swift move, he takes down 2 of them. Honestly, he's on a whole different level. He conjures up a fireball, aiming to snag a few more titles. Back at the exit, his bag is packed with diamonds. The inspector can hardly believe what they're seeing. Han-sung just waves goodbye, grinning ear to ear. But just as he's about to leave, someone calls out his name. A woman says they've crossed paths before, but this time, she wants to introduce herself properly. She's Lee Shuri, an assistant from Team 1 of the Saiwan Guild. She asks if they can chat for a moment. Flashback to a week ago, the manager is frantic, trying to figure out who's been causing him so much trouble. Lee insists she has no clue either. The guild master takes a look at Choi Hunsung's profile. He figures the protagonist must be raking in cash from all those magic stones. But the girl doubts that means the protagonist has some special power. Still, the guild master thinks there's a good chance he does. That's why he's eager to recruit this kid. Naturally, Lee is on board with the idea. He plans to send a negotiation expert to assist, but suggests she try persuading the boy first, since she's the one who discovered him. Before she leaves, he has one last question. The guild master asks if Lee shared this info with anyone else in the guild. She assures him she didn't. She even made sure her friend kept quiet. With that, he trusts his assistant's word. The protagonist starts to wonder how they managed to track him down. That's when he recalls the contact card he got. Naturally, this annoys him. Our hero immediately confronts the woman, demanding to know how she found him and how they know his name. The kid's got a hunch they're digging into his past too. Picking up on that vibe, the negotiation expert steps up and asks if they can have a more chill conversation. But Choi Hunsung just brushes him off and walks away. The guy's running out of moves, so he asks if he can swing by our hero's place instead. That suggestion really throws the protagonist for a loop. The guy explains he was waiting outside to be respectful. He introduces himself as Go Jin-sung, the recruitment manager for the Saiwon Guild. Choi Hunsung wants to know what they're after. Go lays it out straight. They want him on their team. Our hero makes it clear he's not interested in joining any guild. The recruiter gets it and apologizes if he seemed too forward. He points out that most guilds are way more aggressive and less courteous when recruiting. But nothing he's saying is swaying our protagonist. Plus, the guy's talking a mile a minute. Our hero wants the details on the signing bonus and the annual salary. Go mentions that it all depends on the person's level and attributes. That's when our hero starts to see they're showing their hand. The recruiter assures him that, at the very least, he'll get a signing bonus of 100 million and an annual salary of 10 million. The protagonist is taken aback. Even if they're lowballing him, that's still a hefty offer. Maybe they want him as their star player. It doesn't really add up though, since our hero's never heard of a rookie getting that kind of money. Well, except for the country's one and only powerhouse, Kim Hana, who's already shown her skills to the world. But that's not the case for Choi Hunsung. Sure, our hero has his unique buy and sell ability, but they definitely don't know about that. When he got his player card, he made sure to only show his level. That's when it clicks for him what's really happening. Koeri Hunsung asks if all this is because of the magic stones. The recruiter plays dumb, saying he has no idea what he's talking about. It was just for a split second, but Lee's reaction gave it away. You can totally tell the recruiter has no clue what he's talking about. Meanwhile, Nashi is doing a terrible job of hiding his frustration. But come on, a big guild wouldn't chase someone just for magic stones. They probably already suspect our main guy has some unique ability. The recruiter is curious about what's on his mind. After all, he's got nothing to lose. Choi Hunsung starts off by saying that showing his status window doesn't really benefit him. Then he points out that Ko hasn't made any solid promises yet. The recruiter claims he'll promise everything once he sees the hero's status. Choi Hunsung demands the 100 million bonus up front. Then he'll show them the status whenever they want and join. Again, the recruiter insists he needs to see the status window first. So with that, the protagonist wraps up the conversation. Choi Hunsung kind of expected this to happen. Looks like he'll need to be more cautious with those gems. He's attracted enough attention to get investigated. Right then, the hero gets a call from an unknown number. And surprised, it's the same recruiter he just spoke to. Choi Hunsung hangs up immediately. The kid's patience is wearing thin with them. Later on, at home, a new message pops up. It's got try again. Trying to convince our guy to join the out-of-protagonist grabs his phone and blocks the contact. Choi Hunsung is out on a hunt. Afterward, as he exits the dungeon, someone is waiting for our hero. But he just walks past, ignoring them completely. In a different dungeon, he's up against blue lizards. This bunch of monsters goes down easily. Our hero is feeling pretty worn out. But at this pace, he'll soon have enough to buy the elixir. The next dungeon is crawling with red mane wolves, suited for levels 15 to 20. Unlike the last place, this area is busy, but not packed. The giant wolves are under attack by a group of adventurers. A nearby hero thinks these wolves are tougher than the lizards he faced. But even so, they'll fall with just one hit. Our hero figures that with his current stats, he could take on level 50 monsters. Today, he's aiming to earn the Wolf Hunter title. Deeper in the dungeon, there's a security badge covered in blood. From the shadows, you can see the man being devoured alive. His level 71 partner is in shock, unable to believe his eyes. The creature they're up against is this two-headed dog. The player tries to save his buddy, but in a flash, he loses an arm. The creature's so fast, he didn't even catch what happened. In a panic, he tries to make a run for it. But with just one hit, the player meets his end. The protagonist doesn't have to go far to find people. Shori Hansen thinks that since it's a popular dungeon, it's bound to be packed. Our hero finds that pretty alarming. These portals started popping up a decade ago, even after discovering a heroic dungeon. A new one always appears, because new players awaken every year. A wolf jumps in for an attack, but Shori Hansen slices its head off mid-leap. Before he even touches the ground, a group is already waiting for him. Quickly, gets a fireball ready. With ease, he blows them all away in one go. Another group is already gearing up to attack. Our hero lifts his shield, but instead, he goes for a punch on the hound. Then he follows up with a combo, striking with his blade. Right after that, our hero gets ready to fire off a magic missile, which immediately takes out one of the wolves. The pack and the protagonist lock eyes, sizing each other up. The protagonist dares them to come at him. Without hesitation, the wolves charge forward, but the protagonist leaps right over them. In the end, Shari Hansen wraps up the fight quickly and already snags his first title. He finds his blade's ability super handy. Looks like this area's been cleared out, decides it's time to move on. He spots a small group battling some monsters, but Shari Hansen just walks past them. Then he comes across another group fighting too. With so many people around, our hero opts to head to a different dungeon. But before he can leave, he hears a desperate scream. When he turns around, he sees two players getting wiped out simultaneously. He locks eyes with a massive creature. One female player tries to escape, but she gets crushed like a bug. A piece of her goes flying through the air and lands right at the protagonist's feet, making Shari Hansen feel like he's about to puke. The three-headed dog has completely obliterated the entire player party. Now, facing this massive beast for the first time, our hero is feeling the pressure. As the dog lunges to crush him, the protagonist swiftly dodges out of the way. Shari Hansen is realizing for the first time that his life is genuinely at risk. He takes cover behind a rock, but the panther strikes exactly where he is. Shari Hansen didn't expect his stealth to fail so miserably. He leaps to avoid the attack. Even though the strike barely touches him, his armor is already in shambles. Now, he's left with just his shirt and cloak. The giant panther goes for another attack. The hero jumps and slams his shield into the panther's nose, stunning it momentarily. Unfortunately, it doesn't have much effect. Shari Hansen drops his bag on the ground and gets ready for a fire attack. He launches 3 fireballs at once, and this time, the monster definitely feels it. He quickly grabs his stuff and tries to make a run for it. His magic didn't pack the punch he was hoping for. This monster is seriously tough, even though this dungeon is supposed to be for level 20 players. The protagonist fires off 2 more fireballs. He manages to hit 2 of the heads at the same time. But if he keeps going like this, he'll burn through his mana fast. The main guy gets blindsided and takes a hit. Luckily, Shari Hansen makes it through. His cloak is way tougher than the rented gear. The dog tries to beat him down, but it's a waste of effort. Our hero worries about running out of steam at this rate. He quickly pulls up his purchase system and spots a gem that boosts dexterity. While on the run, he manages to snag and consume the gem. 20 minutes later, he's absorbed enough. Now, his total stats hit 849. With that, he hurls a fireball. The blast scorches half of the dog's face. He dodges the first attack. For the second one, even so, the monster gets hurt. At this rate, our guy's gonna wrap up this fight fast. But the giant panther starts healing up quickly. Now it's obvious fireballs alone won't cut it. Maybe this won't be such a walk in the park after all. Our hero figures out the monster's weak to fire, but he needs something stronger to finish the job. As he runs, the giant hound is hot on his heels. Our hero stumbles upon a skill he might be able to buy. The catch is, it's pricey, and he's worried about his health. But survival is his top priority right now. Cory Kansung turns, ready to throw down. He gears up to unleash his power. The giant charges at him with all its rage. Cory Kansung conjures a fire spear, hoping to nail the shot. This is his new flame ability. Luckily, the attack blows up right in the monster's face. Our hero is pumped that it actually worked. One of the heads goes boom. Now there are only 2 left. But his second strike misses completely. Cory Kansung stays focused. He dares the beast to see who'll come out on top. The first spear misses its mark, but the second one hits perfectly, taking out one of the panther's heads. The protagonist celebrates again, but the excitement is short-lived. He checks his status window and realizes his mana is depleted. His goal now is to hang on until his energy comes back. Meanwhile, a girl screams in terror. All the players are rushing out of the dungeon. Only the guards are sticking around. They're witnessing a gruesome scene left behind by the one. One of them mentions finding a footprint. From its massive size, the group figures this creature is anything but ordinary. The girl starts questioning if chasing after this thing is really the smartest move. One player is fed up with just waiting around for backup, especially since the guards outside aren't answering. This could mean they've also fallen victim to the creature. Despite their doubts, the group leader insists on checking it out. One member flat out refuses to go any further. He's not willing to risk his life for this job, but the leader argues that others might be in danger. That player, though, couldn't care less about anyone else. This kicks off a heated argument. The fight gets so intense that they have to be pulled apart. Another player tries to remind them that this isn't the right time for this. In the heat of battle, Choi Hyun-sung's mana isn't recharging quickly enough. Meanwhile, the monster isn't showing any signs of slowing down. To make matters worse, its heads are regenerating again. The protagonist has to finish the fight before it fully recovers. Our hero readies another spear, but if he misses, it's game over. They lock eyes for what feels like an eternity. Then Choi Hyun-sung makes a bold move and drops his weapon. Dragging this fight out any longer just isn't worth it. The protagonist clutches the fire spear with determination. It's time to settle the score. Our hero senses he's about to pull off something wild, so he takes a moment to breathe deeply. Now, he's ready for whatever comes next. The hound lunges to crush him, but it's way off the mark. Before the beast realizes, Choi Hyun-sung is airborne, right by its head, but the dog manages to dodge his strike. This leaves our hero feeling a bit frustrated. Now it's Cerberus's turn to attack, but our hero dodges just in the nick of time. The creature tries to capitalize on the moment. It aims to strike him midair, so the protagonist kicks off a rock. Using the momentum, he propels himself forward. He swings his spear, and it seems like he missed. But when he lands, our hero is pumped. Even a glancing blow left a mark. A scar now mars the monster's face. Choi Hyun-sung charges at his foe with ease. The monster tries to retaliate, but he dodges it effortlessly. The hero manages to land a solid hit on the creature. The beast howls in agony. Seeking revenge, the dog lunges to crush him again. Choi Hyun-sung, quick on his feet, climbs onto its back and thrusts his spear into the back of its neck. Then he leaps as high as he can, and slams the fire spear down with force. Still not satisfied, he keeps driving the weapon deeper. When there's nothing left above the neck, he thinks he's finally won. With that, Cerberus seems dead. Or maybe not, because a massive paw swings at him. He raises his shield in defense, but it's no use. He's torn to pieces. The dog's face is already regenerating, and once more, the protagonist is cornered by the beast. No doubt, this creature is incredibly stubborn. His mana is almost gone. The protagonist braces himself for one last showdown. He strikes at the half-formed face. Just Choi Hyun-sung counters immediately. In the end, he hurls his spear, blowing apart the outer neck. The giant monster crashes to the ground, lifeless. Choi Hyun-sung stands there, his hand burned and his energy completely drained. He stares at his defeated foe. Just then, a new notification appears. Our guy scores a rare achievement for taking down the beast known as Gredon. Choi Hyun-sung had no idea he was up against such a legendary creature. Then, another message pops up. This one catches him off guard. He earns the title of Level Breaker for defeating a monster 100 levels above his own. He's thrilled with these two new achievements, even though they came at a high cost. Suddenly, the monster starts turning into mana, transforming into a skill book. He walks over and picks the item up from the ground. This rare skill grants him the power to survive as long as his head remains intact, with all other injuries healing. As long as he protects his head, he can recover from any attack. Our hero is now nearly immortal, even if the healing is slow. He can level up this ability. He's never seen a rare skill that can evolve like this one. Tanks would absolutely lose their minds over this book. Choi Hyun-sung packs up his stuff, ready to head out. He can't shake the thought that there's no other skill like this anywhere. It's truly unique. A prompt pops up asking if he wants to activate the power of immortality. Choi Hyun-sung agrees, and a blue light starts to shine. As soon as his passive ability kicks in, he begins to heal. But it looks like this power drains vitality. Luckily, our guy has plenty of that. Later on, he checks out the titles he's earned. The first one boosts all his stats by 5. What really gets him excited is that it's a common rank, meaning he can level up that percentage. With the other title, he gains an extra 3 vitality. Choi Hyun-sung thinks Gredun was a good companion. With everything sorted, he decides to make his way back. A group of players rushes in to take down the monster. One of the members spots some players. A girl in the group quickly identifies herself. The adventurers are totally baffled. The squad leader, Shin Yuna, mentions she heard a rumor about a high-level monster. That she's asking everyone to evacuate. But why? One girl is totally freaked out, but the leader confirms it's all legit. Shin wants to know if anyone's already sensed the creature. He can only pick up on the wolves though. Then, out of nowhere, things shift. He announces they found a player. He wants to know the location and number. Turns out, it's just one person. Our protagonist is heading back, grinning ear to ear, but he senses someone approaching. He halts right there, anxious about who these folks might be. It's obvious they're high level. Their gear is super shiny. The group's leader checks in with our hero, asking if he's okay. A bit wary, our hero replies that he's fine. Shin notices he's looking pretty rough, so she asks if he ran into the monster. Choi Hyun-sung claims he has no clue what she's talking about. The group leader insists he saw the high-level monster. Our hero figures the association is already in the loop about the situation. Our hero decides to admit that, yeah, he did encounter the creature. Suddenly, the girl gets way too close, buzzing with excitement to learn more. That's when she realizes she messed up. Shin quickly says sorry. She offers to help him out and hands over a vial to treat his wounds. Choi Hyun-sung notices it's a super rare item. The description mentions the potion heals fast. Shin tells him to just spray it on his hand, and that's all he needs to do. The protagonist isn't sure how to respond, so he decides to bring up the monster. The leader encourages him to continue. Choi Hyun-sung describes the beast as a massive, black-furred, 3-headed jaguar. Shin points out that a monster like that has never been seen before. Even her teammates are clueless about it. The protagonist goes on, saying the monster was as big as a house. He adds that it headed in that direction. Shin thanks him for the info. Suddenly, they vanish in a flash. Even our hero is taken aback by their speed, but he's relieved he took down the creature. If not, by the time those players showed up, it would have caused more chaos. The reward is just an extra perk. Even if that group ends up searching for nothing, the team finally reaches the end of the dungeon. One of the players wonders if the creature made it through the portal. The leader really hopes not, because that would mean even bigger trouble. She knows the monster's tasted blood and will definitely come back for more. This time around, all she can do is file a report with the association. But something's still bugging her. Only now does she stop to think about how that guy managed to escape. For someone who lost his whole party, he didn't seem too rattled. Shin decides to head back just to have a chat with him. The captain tells her team to hang tight. The mage is curious about what's bothering her. Shin mentions she's worried about the player she ran into earlier. The tank is convinced he's okay, but since he's on his own, she wants to make sure. After a bit of hesitation, he agrees. In the end, her team decides to wait for her. With a single step, she disappears into the shadows. As she makes her way back, she spots something odd. There are some stains on the wall that catch her eye, but she keeps moving. Of course, she doesn't find the guy there, so she figures he managed to escape safely. Back at his place, the new skill is turning out to be pretty effective. Even though the regeneration is slow, when paired with healing magic, it's super handy. With nothing else going on, the main guy flops onto the couch. He's totally wiped out. Not long after, his mom shows up. She immediately notices something different about his face. Choi Kun-sung knows exactly why. He spent a ton of points on that fire spear. But to brush it off, he just says he's been working a lot. But she gets upset because he skipped lunch. So, his mom decides to whip up something for him. Choi Kun-sung has a bit of a dilemma. It's going to be a problem if these situations keep popping up. Just then, his sister calls their mom asking about him. Apparently, she's talking about the incident in the dungeon where a lot of people lost their lives. Most likely, the public figured out who the victims were by seeing who hadn't made it out of the dungeon. His mom wraps up the call. From the look on her face, she's clearly not pleased. She's already pieced together that this is why he got home early. Choi Kun-sung tries to reassure her, insisting he didn't see the monster. His mom starts by saying she always knew this job was too risky, but our guy insists he loves what he does. He mentions that besides being happy, hunting monsters is a blast. The following day, the Red Wolf dungeon gets temporarily shut down. The place is packed with people. During the investigation, they pinpoint where the first victims were attacked. There are no clues about where the creature went, according to tracking specialist Kim Dong-soo. Shin points out it doesn't make sense for the monster to still be in the dungeon, since they've searched everywhere. Kim isn't sure what happened either, but he's trying to follow its trail. A squad leader offers to join him. The officer appreciates her help, saying he feels much safer with her around. But she just replies that she's doing her job. Using his abilities, Kim figures out that this area was also hit by the monster. Then it headed off in another direction. But the investigator stumbles upon something odd. The jaguar actually let a player get away. Kim is running, keeping an eye on the scene through his magic. He mentions that a fight went down. That's when he figures out it was just one player who took on the beast. Kim points out you can still feel the traces of fire magic in the air. Plus, this player's endurance is off the charts, so he guesses the person might be a magic swordsman. They both reach the spot where the main battle took place. The investigator notes that the beast got hit hard here, leaving it with a serious wound. Shin can't wrap his head around how a monster that wiped out all the security officers could have been injured. Kim initially thought the player was a swordsman, but now he's leaning towards the idea of a mage with crazy dexterity, and someone using some seriously strong skills. They make their way to the next location, where the battle's outcome was decided. This leaves the captain even more baffled. Kim is once again questioning his earlier theory that the player was a mage, because what he's seeing now is an intense close-quarters fight, followed by some powerful magic being used. This player is a mix of swordsman and mage. Since there's no body, the investigator figures the creature must have turned into items or magic crystals. Shin is totally baffled. Magic swordsmen and mages are not only rare, but they're also kind of a mediocre class. But this person took down a monster way above the dungeon's level all by themselves. Kim mentions he read in the report that the highest level player who entered that cave was, at best, level 24. Plus, this person wasn't one of the officers since they were all wiped out, and the ones outside didn't lift a finger because of an ongoing conflict. She thinks there's no way a regular player could have pulled this off. Kim suggests it might be someone who hasn't updated their player registration, since players only need to do that every 2 years. At most, such a player would be around level 50. And besides, no guild-backed player went into this dungeon either. Kim agrees, saying it's a really strange situation. Even if a super strong player was in that cave, it doesn't make sense for them to hang around a beginner dungeon. Shin wonders if there's a way to track this player down. Kim is mostly skilled at tracking monsters. Still, he assures he'll give it a shot. The officer uses his special abilities and notes that as soon as the battle ended, the player's trail vanished. In this kind of terrain, tracking the player with magic is going to be tough. Shin asks how he managed it with a monster. The officer explains that monsters leave more obvious signs, like this massive footprint. So if a player isn't fighting or using magic, it's hard to spot anything. Plus, this person didn't use any magic afterward. If they had, Kim could have tracked them. Realizing what Shin's trying to do, Kim understands he was asked for the impossible. So, she says sorry. Kim is the one who apologizes, admitting he still has a lot to learn. Shin suggests they head back now. The officer agrees. They wrap up the investigation in the dungeon. Shin notes they need to check every player who entered there. She guesses the person who took down the monster is over level 100 in strength. If there's a player like that out there, she thinks they should hire them ASAP because they can't keep losing all their talent to the guilds. The player association is run by the government, while the guilds are private entities. At first, the association had a lot of influence. There were tons of players, and they were a force to be reckoned with. But over time, the association started losing its grip, and the guilds began to take over. One reason was putting politicians in charge who had no clue about the industry. They started focusing on patriotism and paid players less with unfair contracts. Meanwhile, guilds with media investment backing could offer better and fairer deals. The association did an internal investigation and got rid of the politicians, but it was too late by then. With the corrupt folks out, players began filling those roles. Under new management, they improved their contracts to compete with the guilds and started scouting for talented players. Because of this, the player association is shedding its bad reputation and stepping into a new era. But they're still not as strong as the guilds. Shin points out that this new guy could become a top-tier player. They can't let this opportunity slip by. Choi Kun-sung wants to wrap up the Red Wolf dungeon because all the others are already cleared out, but there's no open spot for him to jump in. Meanwhile, in another city, our protagonist is puzzled about how to level up his new skill since there's zero info about it online. Maybe it's just about figuring out how to use it. The catch is, it's a passive skill, and he's not supposed to get injured. Back at the hotel, Choi Kun-sung is brainstorming ways to stash the magic stones. He doesn't trust those guys hanging around the dungeon entrance. The protagonist needs to steer clear of the association staff's attention. The inspection is supposedly to stop players from sneaking in dangerous stuff like monster eggs or alien plant seeds. But everyone knows the real deal is to crack down on tax evasion by players. The protagonist is convinced there's some kind of cartel between the association and the guild. Our hero has to figure out a plan. He recalls seeing something he could buy. The skill he's buying lets him create a personal space only he can access and control. As usual, it's pricey, but it's a must-have for him. When he clicks the button, the book pops right into his hand. Naturally, he decides to learn the skill. No question about it, Choi Kun-sung is definitely older now. To test it out, a portal appears in front of him, proving it works. Inside, it's way bigger than he imagined. Much larger than the cramped studio apartment he used to live in. Afterward, he closes the portal and gets ready to go monster hunting. Everything goes off without a hitch. He wishes to blend in but of course, there's always someone who remembers him. A staff member grabs his badge and runs it through the scanner. Just as he's about to be cleared, the guy asks him to hold on a minute. Soon, the man confirms our hero's identity. He swiftly slices the wolves to pieces. Right after that, he gets an update. Choi Kun-sung scores a rare title for taking down 1,000 red wolves. In the end, it all went pretty smoothly. Turns out all that earlier fuss was just for a biometric check. So, getting into the dungeon was a breeze. Choi Kun-sung opens up his personal space and pulls the jewels inside. He keeps one aside. Choi Kun-sung feels a bit anxious as his bag gets inspected. But in the end, the staff gives him the all clear. Then he heads out like it's just another day at the office. Now he can relax, knowing he won't attract any more attention. Fast forward 10 days, and Choi Kun-sung finally takes down 10,000 red wolves. He decides to call it a day and sort through his loot. He finds a skill book, but it's a duplicate of one he already owns. He'll check out the other one later. But this is the one he really wanted. Without hesitation, he opts to learn this new power. A new notification pops up. For some reason, he can't learn the new skill. Choi Kun-sung is left unsure of his next move. He's never come across anything like this before. So, what actually happens is that the Book of Immortality absorbs the skill and upgrades itself. Once again, our hero is totally in the dark. He checks out his skill status window, but it looks like nothing's changed. Apparently, the regenerative winds have merged with another skill. What's still a mystery is how much it actually improved. The protagonist grabs his dagger and slices his own skin. In no time, the wound heals up, but it seems like nothing's different. Maybe his skill needs to absorb more books to level up. The catch is, just one of these books costs a whopping 30 million. And honestly, its efficiency is pretty low. In the end, he exits the dungeon and strolls away while fiddling with his phone. Suddenly, an unknown number pops up. The protagonist decides to pick up. The person on the line already knows they're talking to Choi Kun-sung. It's the leader of the second support team on the call. Instantly, he feels a wave of anxiety. The protagonist mentions he only wanted this call if his conditions were met. The caller clearly remembers the 100 billion won deal. So, they decide to go along with his demands and plan to meet up to sign the contract. Choi Kun-sung starts getting suspicious, thinking this might be a scam. But the caller insists it's legit, explaining that because it's a huge deal, they're taking it seriously. They emphasize that the large amount involved makes them handle it with care. For a moment, our guy is just stunned. He mentions he's too exhausted for a meeting right now, but he wants to check out the contract first. The caller agrees and says they'll send it over. Still skeptical, he says he'll call back after he goes through the contract. And not long after, he gets the contract. For him, this part of the saga is done. Later on, Choi Kun-sung heads to a law firm. The lawyer checks out the document, and at first glance, it looks fine. But then the lawyer spots several clauses that could seriously backfire on him if the guild decides to play rough. Choi Kun-sung wants to know exactly what those tricky parts are. The first issue is that if he does anything that could tarnish the guild's reputation, the contract's off. And it's up to the executives to make that call. Another clause mentions that if they decide the player isn't up to par, they can just end the contract. And breaking the contract comes with a hefty penalty. So, if any of these things go down, our protagonist has to cough up 10 times the bonus. The protagonist is already fed up with these folks. The lawyer suggests setting up a meeting to sort this out and agree on a clear bonus amount, not just multiplying it by 10. The protagonist tries reaching out to the guild's rep. He knows he needs to keep his cool during the conversation, but that's going to be a challenge. He calls the first business manager who tried to strike a deal before, and this time, the guy offers a 50 million bonus. Choi Hyun-sung says he was aiming for 100, and the negotiator is well aware of that. But honestly, even though the guild's a big player, the amount he's asking for is pretty steep. The guy had to practically beg just to get the 50 billion approved. In this scenario, Choi Hyun-sung says he'll mull it over. Even the guy is taken aback. Then he sends the contract over to our hero. Choi Hyun-sung is checking out this document, which looks just like the last one, except for the bonus part. It seems almost identical to the previous version, but there's a twist with the bonus. The lawyer wants to make sure everything's in order. Our guy confirms it is and asks him to take a look at the new one. The lawyer's all smiles and ready to dive in. But when he returns, something's bugging him. The lawyer suspects the contract wasn't crafted by the same person. Choi Hyun-sung is curious how he figured out there were two authors. The lawyer points out that while the layout is the same, there are some noticeable differences. For starters, this version has fewer bad clauses, and the penalty fee is now just 5 times the bonus. The protagonist wonders why the guild would offer 2 different contracts. Apparently, there's some internal drama brewing. But that's actually a win for our guy because he can snag a better deal. So, he asks the lawyer to draft a contract like the first one, minus the sneaky stuff. Back at the hotel, Choi Hyun-sung hops online and quickly discovers there's a power struggle between the guild master and the vice leader. That's why our hero decides to mess with them a bit. So, he gives Seo, the second in command of the support team, a call first. Obviously, Seo is surprised and hopes his client has already made up his mind. Choi Hyun-sung says he wants a bigger bonus. Now he's asking for 200 billion. At first, Seo is shocked, then he says that's probably not feasible. So, the protagonist ups the ante to 300 billion. Seo then asks if our hero is just messing with him. Choi Hyun-sung mentions he's already been contacted by team leader Go Jin-suk. It's clear things aren't going smoothly between them. Seo falls right into the trap, and ends up promising to match any offer made. Obviously, the two of them can't stand each other. Then Navi calls Go. Naturally, the team leader is thrilled and asks if our hero has checked out the contract. The protagonist says he has, and he even wanted to sign it. Naturally, Go suggests they meet up, but Choi Hyun-sung says he's changed his mind. Of course, Go is completely baffled. The hero mentions he's going to send over a contract he got via message. He asks for a moment to check out the document. When he finally gets it, the protagonist suggests they sort out their internal issues first, and then they can have a chat. Until then, the 100 billion bonus isn't cutting it anymore. He's now suggesting 200. Actually, 300 sounds more reasonable. Naturally, the guy is completely baffled. But hey, if he's not interested, he can just say no. Then he hangs up. Now, the protagonist starts tweaking the audio from the call, and sends it to both parties. Right after that, he tosses his phone aside. Both of them listen to the edited audio, and judging by their reactions, it's not looking good. A month later, the vice leader is curious about Choi Hyun-sung's whereabouts. Seo mentions that in the dungeons they oversee, the protagonist hasn't made an appearance. He even sends out some folks to track him down, but no luck. The boss shouts that he's useless. He doesn't care how it's done, he just wants that kid found. Because of the chaos Choi Hyun-sung stirred up, the guild ended up splitting in two. There's a major conflict brewing between the leader and the vice president. Seo got lucky checking out the association's records, but let's be real, it's not exactly legal to peek at those government files. But that's not the biggest issue right now. Choi Hyun-sung has vanished without a trace. His boss wonders if the protagonist joined another guild. Seo doesn't think that's the case. Right then, the vice president loses it over the response, and tells Seo to get out of his sight. As the door shuts, he even smashes a cup in frustration. Seo walks down the hallway and avoids everyone he sees. He's super anxious. It's all because of the leaked audio recordings. Because of that, most of the team is backing the other side. Seo knows he has to find Choi Hyun-sung, no matter what. For our guy, just the hunting points alone are worth it. This way, he's pulling in 600,000 a day. Little by little, he's getting closer to his goal. His sales are doing pretty well too. If he keeps this up, he'll hit his target soon. The hero has just one gripe. The sales window could definitely be bigger, and he has to register items one at a time. It'd be awesome if he could register multiple items at once. It's not like he can just pull out his gadgets here. Choi Hyun-sung wonders if there's a way to level up. There's a user who sells medicine and can register way more items than he can. Apparently, he needs 10 billion points to hit the next level, and he's already halfway there. While he's chatting, a monster sneaks up from behind. Swinging his spear, the creature gets a boot to the face, and is slammed to the ground. Then our guy preps a magic missile and blows the monster up. But things are about to get tricky. A whole group of monsters shows up. And to make it worse, they've got acidic tongues. They all leap at him together. Our hero fires up a fireball, launching them all into the air. But they're not done yet. They charge again, fearless. He's starting to get really ticked off. So much so that he draws his sword. This time, he's taking the fight to them. The monster doesn't even see it coming when it gets hit. Choi Hyun-sung is insanely fast. He slices through two at once, and his blade absorbs the blood it collects. The protagonist isn't bothered by it at all. Everyone here still gets knocked out with one hit. Meanwhile, someone seems to have bought the batteries. And now there's a new complaint for him to deal with. Choi Hyun-sung is already catching on to the situation. The buyer keeps insisting that the batteries should be sold at half price. And all the other messages are saying the same thing. So, our hero decides to check out this person's profile. It's obvious that he sells a ton of different stuff. But the only thing he bought from our protagonist was the batteries. It'd be a different story if he was buying electronics. But this guy's just grabbing disposable batteries. On top of that, he's demanding a discount. Our hero is left wondering why he should even consider that. He quickly lists the new items. And right after, the batteries get sold. But Choi Hyun-sung totally saw that coming. And of course, another complaint rolls in. At first, the protagonist is a bit puzzled. But he soon realizes this guy is trying to push him out of business. So, he accepts the challenge. Ro is curious to see just how far the protagonist can go. He's convinced no one can take him down. Ro started out as a newbie with a knack for buying and selling. That's how he got his power boost. And eventually, he ended up ruling his planet. But it wasn't a walk in the park. Points were always in short supply, no matter how much he tried to save. The process was straightforward. But racking up points was always a hassle. Gro knows the usual drill. Hunt for points, buy skills, and level up. But occasionally, someone unique shows up. Someone who can sell rare items from their world. Even if those items are monopolized. To grow, everyone else is just a delivery service. He buys up everything they have and then reports them, getting them suspended for 3 months. Then he just does it all over again. It doesn't matter who they are, the seller ends up having to offload their goods depending on Grow's whims. Then he seizes control of the item monopoly and gets the seller suspended again. But something's off. There are no more batteries available. The protagonist's entire stock is gone. Our hero makes his way to the mall and he leaves with a shopping cart packed with stuff. Choi Hyun-sung realizes someone is trying to sabotage his business. But he's already sold everything. Still, he's not planning to make it easy for them. He's ready for round 2. The selling and reselling battle kicks off. Other players are buying too. Even after he doubles the price, sales keep rolling in. But Grow is bound to catch up eventually. Since a clash is inevitable, the protagonist decides to triple the price. This move pushes his points over 10 billion. He's hit the rare level, and now the sales window can handle 100 items. Initially, he was annoyed. But it turns out Grow helped more than harmed. It was a risky play though. The complaints almost outnumbered the products. Choi Hyun-sung switches up the items for sale. He's curious to see how things unfold. Grow thinks the kid has thrown in the towel. He assumes the kid needs to restock. Grow is in the same boat, having taken a big hit too. The worst part was when battery prices shot up 4 times. He's furious with our hero. Still, he can't afford to back down. Grow thinks he's finally pushed the protagonist to his breaking point. But then, something unexpected happens. This time, he spots a camping battery up for sale. Grow is completely thrown off by this. He can't wrap his head around Choi Hyun-sung having something like that in his arsenal. And to make things crazier, there are over 70 of them listed, adding up to more than 2.1 million. Plus, there's the chance that even more could be available for purchase. Grow realizes he need to invest a lot more. If he was sure about it, he'd buy them all without a second thought. The catch is, he has no clue about this guy's limits. Grow throws in the towel. Another sale wraps up smoothly. No new complaints, which means his opponent has backed down. And those camping batteries? Snatched up by the usual buyers. Right after, Grow puts the batteries back on the market, and the protagonist can't help but laugh at this desperate attempt. But thanks to him, our hero ended up selling more than he planned. Back at home, the protagonist spots something that makes him think about updating his shop. Maybe he stumbled upon something cool. Meanwhile, in the other world, the demon girl notices an arcade machine. They've just added a game bundle for sale. She's already got a Nintendo, so she's debating if it's worth the purchase. Choi Hyun-sung is definitely rolling in cash. He's sitting on 14 billion now, but to hit heroic rank, he needs to hit the trillion mark. For some reason, reaching that level is insanely tough. Our guy knows it's going to take ages to get there, but if he does make it to heroic, waking up a bit, our hero notices comments on his products. The first one is from someone named Barricade, who loves the Nintendo for its fun factor, but others say it's useless. Barricade also trashes the shaver, saying it's only good for guys with beards, and others agree. Barricade's username pops up everywhere, leaving reviews on all his stuff. But on the new battery, folks are mad he's only now selling a better version after they stocked up on the old ones. Seems like they're catching on. Choi Hyun-sung knows there are products that can run on infinite energy with magic stones, but those cost a fortune. So, they're not even worth selling. On the bright side, the arcade reviews are doing pretty well. The protagonist decides to check out the items in the purchase window. He spots a dragon egg up for sale, but it's insanely pricey. Barricade mentions in his review that having a dragon as a pet is awesome, but feeding it is a pain, and at 30 billion, it's a tough buy. Choi Hyun-sung is lying on his bed, daydreaming about how much the legendary elixir might cost. That's when his mom calls. He wonders why she's calling at this hour. She asks if he knows someone named Siwoo Durung. At first, he can't remember, but then she mentions this guy is from the support team of the Siwoo Guild. Choi Hyun-sung suddenly recalls who that person is. She says he came to their house. Our hero asks if he just showed up out of the blue. His mom says the guy is outside right now. Choi Hyun-sung says he'll call Siwoo later and tells her not to open the door for him. Naturally, she's worried, but he promises to explain everything later. Before ending the call, his mom reminds him to stay safe. The protagonist assures her everything's going to be alright. Right after that, Choi Hyun-sung rings up Siwoo. Naturally, the guy is thrilled to finally chat with our hero. Wasting no time, the protagonist asks why he's at his mom's place. The guy claims it was just a casual visit with no ulterior motives. He believes the hero's mom should be informed about the contract since it's crucial for his dad. But our hero insists he's the one signing it. However, Siwoo argues that such a decision should involve the family. Of course, the protagonist isn't on board with that. The guy thinks the protagonist is being too tough even after he secured the requested amount. But Choi Hyun-sung doesn't view the contract the same way. Naturally, Siwoo pretends he has no clue what's happening, which annoys the protagonist even more because he knows about the clauses. Siwoo gets a bit uneasy. He explains it's just a precaution in the contract. But if the protagonist is as good as they expect, nothing bad will happen. So here's the question again. What if he just doesn't show his status window? Steele tries to brush it off like it doesn't matter, but you can tell he's getting nervous, and it totally comes across in the call. Choi Hyun-sung doesn't think the Siwoo Guild will get how his powers work when they see he's only level 1. Our guy says he's hanging up, so if Siwoo tries calling back, no one's picking up. And this dude better stay away from his mom. That's the last warning. Siwoo's left empty-handed again, feeling frustrated and anxious about his failure. He rings up the team leader. He wants to know if they managed to track down Choi Hyunsung. Apparently they did, but our hero isn't in any guild-controlled area. Siwoo tells them to contact Woo Yun and take action. The sales leader doesn't actually want to mess up our hero's life. It's just a scare tactic to make him come running back to the guild for protection. His stuff has been selling like crazy lately. He's scrolling through his phone. As usual, he fills up his cart. But then, our hero pauses. He stops right in front of Gosher. He walks out with bags brimming with coins and clothes. His shopping spree is complete. Afterward, he makes his way to the portal. There, he's all set for the hunt. A bunch of monsters spots him trespassing in their turf and charges at him in a horde. With a single move, our hero takes down 2 of them simultaneously. Then, he adjusts his blade and slices a frogman clean in half. Right after, he leaps, ready to unleash his fireball, setting the area ablaze. Choi Hyunsung hits the milestone of slaying 10,000 frogmen. He figures it went quicker than he thought. Another day wrapped up, he leaves the portal without a hitch. This time, he decides to hit the dungeon again. But a group of strangers appears to be waiting for him. They visually confirm their target. Then, one of them decides to tail him. Choi Hyunsung steps through the portal and finds himself in a forest. It's his first time in this kind of environment. Now, it's time to sneak in. The protagonist activates his stealth mode. He heads deeper into the forest, determined to find his targets. Soon enough, he spots the goblins gathered together. Without hesitation, he decides it's time to start the hunt. The little goblins don't stand a chance against his magic missiles. They get wiped out instantly. As the goblins charge at him, our protagonist unleashes a fireball, blowing them to bits. But it's not over yet. Another group is already on its way. Choi Hyunsung thinks these creatures are pretty clever, but they end up blown to pieces just like the rest. The goblin hordes are huge and relentless. He keeps using lightning bolts to cut down their numbers. Out of nowhere, an attack comes at him with no warning, but he manages to deflect it with his hand. The goblins are using blow darts, but his cloak is enough to block their attacks. With a single move, he sends the creatures scrambling. He climbs up a tree for a better view. From above, he surveys the battlefield. The goblins keep coming, so he leaps down, smashing one into the ground with force. Finally, the goblins start to show fear. He doesn't let up and slices one in half. With the ground littered with crystals, he's done for today. He opens a portal, ready to stash his loot. Our hero feels someone coming closer. Choi Hyunsung initially thinks it's more goblins, but then, a guy shows up, demanding to know who's trespassing in his hunting zone. And he's got backup. The protagonist is surprised to see another player here. It seems like they're targeting Choi Hyunsung. Naturally, our hero is clueless about the situation. The leader of the group declares that no one should hunt in his domain. Choi Hyunsung argues that he paid to be here, just like everyone else. But the leader insists this area is his turf. So now, the protagonist is supposed to hand over his magic stones. And to make matters worse, he has to surrender his gear too. Our hero never thought he'd run into a bully like this. He'd only read about this kind of stuff online. Choi Hyunsung warns them that they're making a huge mistake. The leader decides to lay down some facts for him. In the dungeon, modern weapons and electronics are useless. So, any issue becomes a one-on-one problem. And any deadly accident can be blamed on a monster. The message is loud and clear. They rob players and will do whatever it takes. But, the protagonist still doesn't get one thing. Even after witnessing the chaos on the battlefield, they still want a piece of our hero. Tired of waiting around, the leader commands his men to charge, but Choi Hyunsung thinks they're moving in slow motion. The first spear whizzes past him and lodges itself in the ground. It was intended to cause some serious damage. Right after that, the rest of the crew rushes in. With a single swing, he slices through the first attacker's sword. Then, he kicks the guy, sending him flying. As the third attacker raises a black blade to strike, one punch takes him out of the fight too. Not just the leader, but everyone is left in shock. Now they're ticked off, and the order is to kill. One warrior jumps in without a second thought, but our hero just slices his sword clean in half. An elbow to the nose finishes that one off. Another guy tries to sneak up from behind, not realizing he's in big trouble. But our hero adjusts his blade's position, leaving the guy with just a scratch. Then, Choi Hyunsung grabs his head and slams it into the ground. But our hero's patience is wearing thin. Suddenly, 3 opponents rush in at once. Our hero decides it's time to sheath his sword. He then opens a portal to grab something. A shield materializes in his hand. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, someone is watching intently. He sees the group getting completely wrecked. For him, the mission would be simpler if he could just eliminate the target. But maybe taking a leg will do the trick. The guy steps out from the bushes. Choi Hyunsung spots him, and judging by his demeanor, this guy seems more intense. You and our hero can sense it. The group refers to him as their guild master. Some of the thieves look puzzled, like they've never seen him before. The master questions our hero if he's the one behind all this chaos. But before he can explain they started it, Choi Hyunsung deflects a sword strike. This dude is way tougher than the rest. Our hero gets pushed back. The master didn't expect anyone to block his attack, especially someone who's already reached the second-class advancement. A person like this shouldn't even be in a dungeon. But he's seriously ticked off by that. The master wanted to wrap this up fast. Now, he feels like he needs to rip off an arm to be satisfied. He lunges at our hero with everything he's got. But once again, he's stopped in his tracks. Choi Hyunsung effortlessly deflects his blade. This guy's got some serious power. He's definitely not like those low-level thugs. His strength and speed outmatch his blade is quicker than the shield. He has no clue how he got into this mess. Choi Hyunsung decides it's time to bail, so he calls forth the fire spear. A huge explosion goes off. Our hero seizes the moment to escape. The master survives, but his hair's singed. Choi Hun-sam is amazed that the guy lived through such a lethal hit. Out of patience, the swordsman charges and closes the gap in a heartbeat, swinging his sword. The protagonist still manages to block it, but the strike could have been deadly. He calls forth his fire spear again. The guy jumps back in a flash. They lock eyes, sizing each other up. But our hero's got a trick up his sleeve. He slams his spear into the ground, kicking up a thick smoke screen. The master looks momentarily confused, but he swings wildly, and manages to hit the shield. The guy's pretty happy he made contact. He's thrilled to have found his mark. He goes in for another hit, but the kid sidesteps just in time. Our hero figures out his opponent isn't aiming to hurt him. Choi Hun-sam straps the shield to his back and conjures another fire spear, setting off another explosion between them. The smoke screen envelopes the area once more, so he misses the next attack. Seizes the chance to pull up the sales menu. He spots what he needs, a book that boosts stats by 50% for 60 seconds, but it costs a whopping 20 billion points. As soon as he confirms, the book materializes in his hands. He quickly absorbs the skill. The power surges through his body instantly. Then the guild master shows up again, thinking his opponent has finally surrendered. Our hero's got just 60 seconds. He can't afford to waste them. That's when the guild master charges at him full throttle. Choi Hun-sam is all set to take him down with a single strike, but Lee Shuvi jumps in between them. At first, our guy doesn't recognize her. The guild master is clueless, not even noticing his sword's been sliced in half. With just one swing of her weapon, he can't even react to the next move. Our hero is stunned. His opponent is knocked out cold on the ground. Choi Hun-sam is baffled, not sure what just went down. Lee, meanwhile, recognizes our protagonist. She admits she was too harsh the last time they crossed paths. Slowly, our hero starts to remember her. Choi Hun-sam suddenly recalls the girl who handed him that rare potion. Now, he remembers her clearly. The protagonist quickly thanks Lee, but the team leader apologizes, admitting she was watching everything from the start. That revelation catches our hero off guard. The girl explains she had been observing since the ambush began. With each word, Choi Hun-sam gets more puzzled. Lee, with a smile, mentions all these folks are criminals. Our hero figures she was there to witness and confirm their crimes. But nope, that's not it. She just wanted to test his skills. Choi Hun-sam is totally baffled again. The girl decides to start over. She introduces herself as Lee Shui, the head of security for the Hero Association. And she wasn't tailing the bandits. She was actually following our main guy. But for now, she wants to take this chat outside the dungeon. First, she plans to clear out these criminals. The protagonist is on board with that. If there's any previous record of these folks committing crimes. Lee says there's no solid proof, that's the term they use. But the charges are actually for murder. However, the protagonist points out they didn't seem to have that intention with him. Lee agrees with that assessment. They both rewind to the start of the conflict. Our hero is curious about why they'd pull something like this, and that's exactly what she's trying to figure out. With a leap, the girl disappears. Lee heads back to the guild leader and tells him she knows he's awake. The guy just stays on the ground. She warns him she's not in the mood for violence, then throws a quick jab his way. The guy wakes up immediately. It would have been simpler if he'd just gotten up on his own. Lee demands to know why he ambushed her. He claims he was just defending his guild members who were getting roughed up. He insists he was attacked by an association member without any reason, and says he got injured while he was out cold. He threatens to call the cops, but she questions if he was truly unconscious. The guy is at a loss for words and starts stuttering. Lee points her spear right at his face, then calls him an idiot. She decides to give him a vague rundown of the situation. They're inside a place where there's no evidence of anything, so he better not count on Choi Hyun-sung going to the police to back him up. Even our hero goes quiet at that. Lee warns him that if he doesn't want this goblin dungeon to be his grave, he better start talking. It would have been easier if, at least he had one witness who survived. But this guy is really stubborn. He starts shouting that nobody from the association can threaten him. It's clear he doesn't get the gravity of his situation. Lee politely asks if she can have a moment alone. Naturally, he agrees. She tells him to go tie up the other bandits. It's safer if they don't get a chance to escape. Our hero quickly heads out. Once they're alone, the guild master immediately starts pleading for his life. But all you can hear is his desperate scream. Choi Hyun-sung follows the instructions and traps all the bandits in a circle. Our hero keeps wondering what their real objective was. His unique ability was never disclosed. Maybe this is all linked to Sue and the three-headed beast. Now our hero is unsure of his next move. Maybe the guild is the one to blame. Choi Hyun-sung is at a loss for words when they ask how he managed to defeat the beast. Our hero decides he needs to get stronger. But the Sue guild isn't backing down. And after his last experience, even someone from the association can't be fully trusted. Our hero thought life would be a breeze once he became a player. Lee shows up, worried it took too long. She reveals that those bandits were hired by Sue. The plan was to seriously injure the protagonist. The idea was to force him into joining the guild afterward. But even with evidence, the association can't move against Sue. Choi Hyun-sung looks a bit uneasy, but he gets it. Lee suggests they should leave. The association takes everyone away in a bus. Our hero just watches. Lee comes back and asks for a moment to chat. Now they're both in the association building. Choi Hyun-sung cuts to the chase. He wants to know why she was tailing him. Lee says it's about the three-headed beast incident. The protagonist wonders how she knew he was in the goblin dungeon. She mentions she checked the dungeon entry log, but our hero thinks that sounds sketchy. Lee clarifies that the association has the green light for that. breaking down the process for him. She was just curious about what his ability was, but then everything got complicated, so she apologizes for not stepping in earlier. In the end, she was really interested in seeing the protagonist's skills. She got her confirmation when she witnessed the fight with the guild leader, realizing Troy-kun-san was the one who took down the giant panther. Our hero is wondering if he'll face any consequences for keeping it a secret that he was the one who killed the monster. She assures him that he won't be punished. The association is after him for a different reason. What she actually wants is to reward him. Troy-kun-san wasn't expecting that at all. On top of that, she has a proposal for him, but the protagonist already suspects she wants to recruit him. Still, he makes it clear he's not interested in joining any group. Lee anticipated his response, but she wants to explain the offer first. They're willing to give him a 100 billion bonus, along with various perks that come with being part of the association. These perks include tax breaks and free equipment. The protagonist figures he'll have to reveal his status window, but Lee says that's not necessary, he just needs to pass a test. Troy-kun-san, our main guy, is curious about what kind of test this is. All Lee has to do is pick someone for him to sit with and answer every question honestly. Troy-kun-san is picturing a full-on interrogation. There are folks with a skill called the contract of truth. If someone speaks the truth, if they lie, red lights show up on their body. Troy-kun-san wonders why they're going to such lengths. He thinks it would have been easier to just hire a high-level player, but Lee explains it depends on the person. Someone truly powerful is even tougher to recruit, and just having numbers isn't worth it. The protagonist asks if it's because of the level 20 rule. She doesn't deny it. Troy-kun-san admits he doesn't know how to break that rule, and if it's proven true, he wants to know if the association would still want him. Lee assures him they would, since getting this strong in just 3 months is enough reason to invest in him. Our hero figures that aside from the failed Su Moon and the association, other guilds must have caught wind of him by now. As he stands now, he's still not strong enough to take on his enemies. That's why Troy-kun-san decides it's time for a test. Lee is thrilled to hear about the plan. A woman is brought into the room. Just as our hero expected, she's going to use the contract of truth skill. She asks if she can proceed. Troy-kun-san gives her the go-ahead. The player explains that once the skill kicks in, a message will pop up asking for consent. All he needs to do is hit yes. The contract of truth kicks off. The message shows up exactly as she described. Even though he dislikes the sensation, he agrees to it. For a moment, some energy wraps around him, but it quickly disappears. Then he notices the player is leaving the room. Now it's just Troy-kun-san and Lee Soo-hee left. She tells him to chill out. It's just a few questions he needs to answer. Our hero takes a deep breath, bracing himself for what's next. The first question is whether he really awakened just 3 months ago. The next question is whether he knows how to bypass the level 20 law, and the answer is no. Then, she mentions she thinks the protagonist is probably at level 140, and wonders why he's hunting in low-level dungeons. That question really makes our hero pause and think. Up until now, the questions have been a breeze. Lee is also curious if he possesses a unique skill. Our hero stays quiet. She reminds him that he has to answer the questions. The leader directly asks if all of this is due to his ability. Troy-kun-san replies yes. She wants to know if he can use that power on another player. The protagonist considers for a moment, and then says no, he can't. The next question is whether he used his unique ability to get around the level 20 law. Troy-kun-san thinks it over before responding, but he admits that yes, he did. Lee then states that the effect of this skill has ended, but she says there's no need. He's answered everything she needed to know. But now they're sure the protagonist has a one-of-a-kind skill. Troy-kun-san suspects that she might have one too. He thinks she also possesses a unique ability. The leader agrees but insists she can't disclose it. However, she does confirm she has a unique skill. The protagonist feels a bit let down, realizing he's not the only one. The leader explains that, as the name implies, this power is exclusive to the individual. No one else in the world will have it. Everyone who's had such a skill has climbed to high positions. The protagonist suddenly understands. The woman standing before him is one of those people. Lee mentions there's a limit to what regular folks can know. Just because someone is high level doesn't mean they get access to others' info. Laws exist to protect players, allowing them to keep their unique skills under wraps. The protagonist asks if he's allowed to know all this, and of course, he is. Technically, she shouldn't have revealed her special ability, but since they'll be working together, it's okay. The protagonist points out he never agreed to join the association. Unfortunately for him, the second he mentioned his unique skill, he ran out of options. Our hero is left completely speechless. Lee reassures him, saying there's no need to worry. It's not the association that's recruiting him, it's her parents. The leader slides a document across the table. Apparently, he can only do this on a national level. The contract has almost no conditions, and if he gets injured on the job, the compensation is more than generous. Plus, he has full control over his magic stones and items. Lee hands him the pen, seizing the moment. Then she shows him where to sign. Honestly, they're giving the protagonist everything he could ask for. It's a lifetime contract, and he feels like it's practically slavery. Korikan-san wonders if others have contracts like this. Lee assures him they don't. Otherwise, the organization would go bankrupt. The reason he's getting this kind of contract is because of his unique skill. Our hero is taken aback. Korikan-san can level up and snag magic stones and items even from low-level dungeons, which means he can keep leveling up endlessly. To her, this is a golden opportunity to recruit someone who could become the strongest player in the world. So, she's willing to invest a bit more. Our hero thinks she's got it all wrong, but that actually plays right into Korikan-san's hands. The protagonist asks if he can tweak the contract duration a bit. The leader is caught off guard. She didn't see that coming. Lee asks if he knows how many people with unique skills are out there. There's no exact count, but it's roughly around 80. Before Korkan-san showed up, she was the only one in Korea with such skills. It's pretty obvious. A unique skill is super rare. She gets that the contract term seems a bit odd, but they can't risk losing someone so exceptional to another country or private guild. That's why they stretched the contract as much as they could. But sure, they can revisit that clause. Korkan-san wants to cap the contract at 1 year. She flat out says that's not happening. But in return, you'll have to drop the bonus to 10 billion instead of 100. Still, the decision doesn't change. He suggests a 2-year term. Lee agrees to keep the contract duration as is. There's a brief pause. Once more, the protagonist insists on a 2-year contract with a 20 billion bonus. But knowing him, if everything goes smoothly with the association, they'll think about renewing it. If she turns it down, then no contract will be made. She wonders if he's planning to move to another country. Korkan-san explains that the protagonist wants to understand the association before committing. Lee argues there are more perks than drawbacks, but our guy wants to make that call himself. She's offering him a huge sum, but he doesn't want to be anyone's puppet because of it. What he really needs now is protection. Sure, if it's a chill place, he'll stick around, but he needs to see it first. Our hero mentions that if he likes the association after 2 years, he'll definitely sign the contract. Korkan-san views those 2 years as a kind of internship. No one has anything to lose here. Lee realizes this situation is going to be tricky, and she knows she can't make this decision on her own. The leader wants to talk to her boss first, so she asks for a few minutes. Feeling a bit more reassured, he agrees. Time goes by, and Korkan-san waits, messing around with his phone. Then Lee comes back and says she's on board with the proposal. But there's a catch. Our guy is curious to hear what it is. She explains that if another association or guild makes him an offer, he has to let them know right away. Plus, if the offer matches, Korkan-san will need to sign the contract with them again. Without any hesitation, our hero agrees. She hands over the updated document. Lee hopes they both do well during this time. They shake hands, wishing each other success, even if it's just for a little while. Contract. Lee suggests he gets some new gear since all his stuff is rented. Korkan-san mentions his sword and cloak are rare rank, so Lee says just swapping out the rest should do the trick. The next morning, they're checking out the equipment storage. The weapons on the wall are definitely eye-catching. They've got everything you could imagine here. The protagonist wonders if everyone can get their hands on these items. Lee clarifies that not everyone can. Access depends on a player's rank, so it's not open to all. But, of course, our hero is an exception to the rule. He's pretty thrilled to hear that. First up, he spots some awesome armor. Light, durable, and boosts dexterity by 5. Korkan-san isn't as impressed as he thought he'd be. So, he knows he needs to choose wisely. Lee offers to explain how the association works while they wait for his gear to be tailored. Now, things are about to get interesting. Lee is also going to reveal which department the protagonist will join. Our hero is intrigued. It's the surveillance team, but the leader explains that their role involves entering dungeons when there are monster or player-related incidents to sort things out. Since the support teams are short-staffed, they'll lend a hand there too. Our hero wonders if he'll be up to the task, especially since he's on his own. She reassures him by saying he'll be assigned to dungeons that match his level, making it more manageable. Lee reminds him that she's his boss, so if anything comes up, he should just give her a call. Korkan-san asks if he can bring up some issues he faced before joining. She's all ears and ready to listen. First off, the data on the magic stones he collected and sold was given to the Seawood Guild. They even tracked his location while he was hunting. Lee assures him she'll handle his issues while working on the current case. She's planning to make sure that guild gets what it deserves. But our guy notices she doesn't seem shocked by his story. She admits it's been going on for a while, and if it were up to her, Siwoo wouldn't even be around. Switching gears now, Lee mentions they'll also sort out housing for him. Korkan-san says that's cool since he doesn't usually stick to one hunting spot for long. But his leader points out that it's actually a bit of a problem. Maybe because of the emergency support duties. She explains they need to properly organize their team. Lee wants Korkan-san to at least let her know every time he heads into a dungeon. This way, she can assign him tasks close by. She also gives him a company card to cover all his expenses. Korkan-san thinks that's pretty unusual too. Lee mentions that if people find out, they'll complain he's getting special treatment. Officially, he's going to be treated like someone constantly on the move. Our guy is genuinely grateful to her, but his boss says she needs to ensure he renews his contract in 2 years. Her sweet tone really gets to him. Later, back at the building, the jacket fits him like a glove. Lee hands him a card indicating that he has the authority to conduct surveillance, and the skills to handle his responsibilities. That should smooth out a few issues from now on. He asks if he can head out now. Lee says yes, but adds that during his time off, he might be called in for emergency support, though that's pretty rare. Choi's last question for Sung is about his signing bonus. She tells him it's already in his account. Lee figures he needed some quick cash. Our main guy mentions he wants to snag some skill books. His boss tells him the association's got a stash. She's ready to take him there right away. Now, he can't shake off the thought of getting stronger, so he's all in on spending his bonus on skills. Choi Hyun-sung realizes he doesn't have as much cash as he thought. Lee explains it's because those books are super rare. There's way more demand than supply, so they disappear fast. Plus, the auction scene is way bigger than what the association offers. Choi Hyun-sung is intrigued by the tax system. Lee wonders if he's sure about buying so many, questioning their effectiveness. but our guy insists that any of them might come in handy someday. His immortality passive just hit unique rare rank. Lee wraps up her work for now. The vehicle's insured, and he can use it like it's his own ride. Choi Hyun-sung says his goodbyes to his boss. The guy's thinking 2 years is way too short. Lee asks the guy if he regrets not snagging that lifetime contract. The president admits he does. He wanted it to last forever. But Lee reminds him he was trying to save some cash. A bit miffed, the president insists he'd never exploit someone just because of a lifetime clause. He even says he upgraded the contract. But Lee points out he did take advantage of her initially. She notes he wouldn't have improved the terms if she hadn't spoken up, and she thinks Choi Hyun-sung was right to set a time limit. The president argues that things were different back then. They learned about unique skills from her. Lee counters, saying that's why she deserved better treatment. The president insists she's treated well and they only agreed to those terms because of her. If it were up to him, they would have pushed the boy to sign by dangling $100 billion. Lee argues that if that had happened, the info would have spread beyond the country's borders. The president accuses her of threatening him, claiming she planned to spill the beans to foreign player associations. But the team leader insists she only mentioned that the odds would go up, nothing more, though the guy's not buying it. She teases him, saying he knows her so well that he probably already knows what's on her mind. The president admits he doesn't, so she drops the bomb. She wants a 2-year contract too. Obviously, that's not happening. Honestly, the president would have done anything to get Choi Hyun-sung to sign a lifetime deal if she hadn't meddled. Lee straight up calls him a villain to his face. The president defends himself, claiming he's just looking out for the nation. He argues there's nothing wrong with wanting someone to stick with the association forever. But the leader points out that from a personal perspective, nobody would want that. He even jokes about what Cindy must have done in a past life to be stuck with her. Obviously, the answer is no. She then walks out of the room. Confused, the president asks where she's headed, and she casually replies that she's going to work. Choi Hyun-sung sends $1 billion to his mom. He's hoping this will cover his dad's and the family's expenses for the next decade. Not wanting to seem foolish, he decides to buy just one skill book for each type of regeneration. His aim? To boost his immortality. Our guy heads over to a spot to browse the online store. There, he spots a skill book that boosts passive recovery. It's rare, just like the immortality one. There's no harm in purchasing it. Lee mentioned that passives are always linked to active skills, and sometimes the active ones aren't great and get ignored. Our hero's plan is to only snag items that are rare rank or better. Choi Hyun-sung mentions he used almost the perfect amount. Now he's ready to spend some points. The protagonist has sold a ton today. His video games and laptops are a hit. He also moved some perfume, makeup, and a few watches. But he had a hunch about one thing. The top seller is the battery. Our hero hits up a second-hand electronics store. When as soon as he walks in, all the staff bow to him. Choi Hyun-sung immediately inquires about the camping batteries. The employees confirm they've charged them all. Our guy appreciates it, but he has a quick question. He wonders if next time they can sell the same number of batteries fully charged again. The vendor assures him they can do that. Plus, he's earned a discount from accumulating points. Choi Hyun-sung thanks them and heads out. Later that night, he takes another look at the shop. Memories of his last battle come flooding back. Cost about 5 billion points, while rare ones are around 10 million each. To boost his attributes to about 200, he'll need to shell out roughly 5 billion. Choi Hyun-sung starts shopping. Since attribute boosts enhance all abilities, it's easy to spot the difference. With the remaining 5 billion, he'll upgrade his immortality passive to a rare level. After leveling up again, his immortality loses the slow regeneration effect. Now it's just normal, theoretically, so he grabs his blade to test it out. He cuts his finger, but the wound vanishes immediately. Right after that, Lee gives him a call. Choi Hyun-sung picks up to chat with his boss. She tells him she reported the Sue executives to the police, and with the evidence they had, those guys got arrested. The protagonist feels relieved. He really didn't want to deal with them again. But Lee mentions that the guild has ties with the police. They didn't interfere though. Instead, they're helping out because of some internal faction drama. Apparently, the guild master is actually teaming up with the police to nab the vice leader. Our guy wants to know what happened to the dude who was pressuring him to sign that contract. Lee says there's an arrest warrant out for that guy too, and the guild leader who attacked him confessed, spilling all the details of his shady activities. He even named his accomplices in the guild, including the vice president. Lee suggests he turn on the TV. Choi Hyun-sung asks for a moment. The news is buzzing about the guild case. It's a huge scandal now that Sue's been exposed for hiring hitmen, and the vice leader's already been kicked out. On top of that, they've been aiding fugitives. Choi Hyun-sung confirms he's been keeping up with the news. It's obvious the vice leader won't escape punishment this time. Everyone who once backed him is now abandoning ship. The main character thanks her for having his back, but Lee admits she wishes she'd handled it sooner. Choi Hyun-sung offers to take her out for dinner as a thank you, but she shoots back that actions speak louder than words. He wasn't kidding though, so his leader tells him to make the plans and keep her in the loop. They say their goodbyes after that. He spaces out for a bit, then remembers he needs to go buy his skill books. Our guy's wondering when something's finally going to change. After trying almost every recovery skill out there to boost his abilities rank, he's hoping for a breakthrough. And this time, it actually happens. Choi Hyun-sung cheers in triumph. He's finally ranked up. So, to kick things off, he's at this unique heroic level. He can only be taken out if both his head and heart are destroyed at the same time. His weakness just got a downgrade, and this ability can still level up. But man, just think about the time and resources it'll take to hit legendary rank. Anyway, that's enough for today. time to catch some Z's. Tomorrow, our guy starts his first emergency support shift. Choi Hyun-sung shows up at the scene. He's feeling a bit jittery. The team checks if he's the guy on duty today. The room's packed with players. Our protagonist confirms, yep, the shift is his. Some players give him a suspicious once-over. One of them asks again if he's the assigned one, and Choi Hyun-sung confirms it once more. Then he mentions he's new to this. The guy's thrilled about it. He's been wanting a rookie for ages, and finally got one. His name's Seo Taekyeol. Our hero introduces himself, and they shake hands. Shiva starts giving him the tour, and he's pretty pumped about it. But the girl tagging along isn't as enthusiastic. They head over to the 7th outpost. Seo tells him he can stick around. Since Choi Hyun-sung got assigned to dungeons below level 100, they're heading to Surayam. This girl is 25 and almost at the same level as our main guy, who's nearing level 100. Our hero hopes they hit it off, but she just nods, not too thrilled. Seo calls her out for being rude. She says she's just being casual since he's younger. Then Surayam checks if the protagonist is upset. Choi Hyun-sung already knows she's got a thing for Seo. Seo apologizes, but Surayam doesn't even ask what's up. Like a true gentleman, the protagonist says he's not bothered. But Choi Hyun-sung points out he's not younger than her. He reveals he's 27, catching Seo off guard. Seo comments that he looks much younger. Surayam feels awkward and apologizes. Choi Hyun-sung says it's all good, but she leaves right away. Seo wraps it up by saying that when a support call comes in, the protagonist will team up with her. He mentions he wanted to team up Choi Hyun-sung with someone else, but she's the only one who ventures into dungeons below level 100. The protagonist reassures him that it's not an issue. The important thing is that his stats now match those of a level 200, so he'd be fine even on his own. This is Choi Hyun-sung's domain. It means he can do whatever he wants here, as long as he's ready for his shift. Poor guy overslept by a whole 4 hours. Having a salary feels amazing to him, especially when he doesn't have to lift a finger. He even thinks about taking night shifts and crashing there. Arrives, saying they've been summoned. Luckily, the protagonist is already prepared. She explains she heard about a monster that surpassed the dungeon's level. Choi Hyun-sung asks if it's okay for just the two of them to go, and she assures him they can manage. It's just a level 70 werewolf showing up in a level 60 dungeon, and fortunately, there haven't been any victims yet, but that's probably because the level gap is just 10. Surayam mentions that she's usually sent to even lower level places. Choi Hyun-sung figures they got called this time because they're short on staff. The girl nods and explains that once a player hits level 50, they get a class upgrade and dive deeper into the dungeon. Further in, there are no security officers. The issue is players are used to having protection, so when things go south, their lack of experience just makes the chaos worse. Choi Hyun-sung guesses from her excitement that she actually likes this stuff. Surayam mentions they get a bonus for dungeon runs, and since they're on standby, some extra cash is always welcome. Choi Hyun-sung points out that he thinks this monster won't be a walk in the park. His partner reassures him not to be scared. She then starts to concentrate, and her body begins to change. The girl transforms right in front of him. The protagonist says she turned into a cat, but she corrects him, saying she's a snow leopard, which, by the way, is still part of the cat family. But our hero decides to apologize before she gets even more irritated. In her new form, she uses her keen sense of smell to track the creature. Surayam warns our hero that if he doesn't hurry, she's leaving him behind. Right after, she takes off, quickly putting distance between them. Choi Hyun-sung is amazed at her speed. In no time, the girl locates the werewolf. The protagonist remarks that her nose is like a hunting dog's, but his partner insists she's way better than any dog. As they get closer, the wolf howls, ready for a fight. Suyun leaps and crushes the monster with a single blow. Choi Hyun-sung finds it a bit intimidating. The protagonist praises her flexible armor, and she mentions it was really pricey, so it better be good. First, she hears a sound, then she catches the scent of another werewolf. She explains that before the last one was defeated, because a group of monsters is heading their way, a considerable number of werewolves is approaching. Choi Hyun-sung asks if this happens often, and his partner says usually no. But sometimes, yeah, it does happen. If this keeps going, the dungeon's name and level are bound to change. The protagonist stays quiet. His partner suggests they report everything after dealing with these guys. She moves ahead. The wolves launch a coordinated attack. Suyun takes one out with a single strike. Choi Hyun-sung also handles them without much trouble. But then, one wolf howls again, and their behavior shifts as a new wolf shows up. This time, it's a much larger creature. The monster is twice the size of the others. Suyun says she'll take on the werewolf king. Choi Hyun-sung figures this creature is around level 100, so he's confident she'll be fine. Just then, our hero senses something approaching. Two monsters attack simultaneously. The creatures try to pin him down, but it's pointless. Choi Hyun-sung thinks they'll wrap this up quickly. The wolves keep charging in, the rest fall without even knowing what hit them. Once it's over, our hero wonders if she's finished yet. But the two are still in the middle of a fight. The protagonist decides to jump in and help. But then, the creature lets out a fierce roar at him. Suddenly, a mysterious magical effect kicks in, and the werewolf disappears right in front of him. The monster goes all out, launching a full-on attack, and lands a direct blow on his partner, slashing her deeply. Then, the beast grabs her neck with its fangs. Choi Hyun-sung fires off a missile of flames, but he completely misses the target. Now, the girl seems to be knocked out cold. Choi Hyun-sung quickly moves to strike from behind, but out of nowhere, Suyun is tossed into his arms. Our guy is really worried about his partner. He immediately starts using healing magic on her. Choi Hyun-sun suddenly recalls the potion he picked up earlier. Just then, the werewolf king makes a move from behind, but instead, its own claws get slashed. The protagonist admits the creature was pretty smart. This beast could have taken her down any time, but was just biding its time for the right moment. The other wolves were just a distraction to stall him. The beast laughs, confirming it's true. The monster strikes again, but it misses. Choi Hyun-sun retaliates with a counterattack. They both start trading lightning-fast blows. The final hit sends the wolf flying back, but then it vanishes again, leaping out of sight. Choi Hyun-sun already has a hunch about where it went. The werewolf aims to attack the unconscious girl. Before it can, it gets a kick right to the face. The creature is sent flying. Choi Hyun-sun arrives just in time. The king lets out a howl, calling his pack once more. And suddenly, our protagonist is surrounded. It's a pretty intense situation, but it actually plays into our hero's hands. Now, he doesn't have to hold back. He fires up the magical missile, flame spell, and ice spell. The monsters rush in, and meanwhile, Choi Hyun-sun conjures up a spear and a fireball. All that power focuses into a single point. Choi Hyun-sun waves them goodbye. Magical energy rains down from above. The monsters get pierced right through. They're struck from every angle. Eventually, the effect wears off. Seeing the outcome, our hero figures he doesn't need to spend all his points at once. Choi Hyun-sun channels his energy into his blade. He unleashes another magical barrage on his foes. The werewolf king is desperately trying to escape. Our hero acknowledges that this creature is pretty slick at dodging. But let's see how it handles a special skill. Suddenly, a massive ice wall appears right in front of it. The monster starts to grasp the serious trouble it's in. This time, to Choi Hyun-sun, it seems pretty slow. His magical arsenal is back, ready to unleash chaos on the enemy. The werewolf king finds itself trapped. Spells are launched its way. The creature is out of options. A barrage of attacks rains down to finish it off. The monster is completely wiped out. Choi Hyun-sun opens up his portal. He gathers everything the werewolf king dropped. The most intriguing find is a heart that appears as an item. Our hero decides to see what this heart is all about. The description says it lets him transform into a werewolf for an hour and boosts all attributes by 30%, but then they permanently drop by 10%. Choi Hyun-sun is a bit taken aback by the heart's capabilities. However, he thinks the downside is too harsh. Still, before anything else, he needs to get out of there. Choi Hyun-sun is chilling next to Soo-young when the team shows up. Soo-young asks how she's doing. He replies that her external injuries are all healed up. But just to be cautious, she should still visit a hospital. Seo expresses gratitude to our hero, saying if it weren't for Choi Hyun-sun, things could have been way worse. The protagonist humbly replies that he was just doing his duty. With that wrapped up, he's ready to head out. After everything that happened, Soo-young personally thanks Choi Hyun-sun, but he totally didn't expect to see her there. Feeling a bit awkward, he repeats that he was just doing his job. What really grabs his attention is that the people are the same as yesterday. Seo explains that after sorting things out, everyone decided to head back to base and chill. Apparently, our hero did the same thing. Choi Hyun-sun mentions he likes resting at the base because, hey, you get paid to sleep. Seo admits that when he first saw our hero, he thought he was just some rich kid with fancy gear that costs a fortune. The protagonist reveals that before he awakened, he was working construction. He was really going through a tough patch. Our hero shares that he had to hustle hard because his dad's health wasn't great. His entire family struggled just to make ends meet. Seo admits he got an unofficial order to keep an eye on the protagonist. That's why he thought Choi Hyun-sun was some spoiled rich kid. The protagonist chuckles at being mistaken for someone with a silver spoon. Out of the blue, Choi Hyun-sun suggests it's probably Lee who's got his back, catching his colleague off guard. He points out that she was the one who brought him into the association. That makes Seo realize there are big expectations for the protagonist, especially since it was the captain herself who recruited him. As night rolls in, our hero decides to stock up before hitting the sack. Soo-young takes this moment to call out to him. This time, she says sorry, but the protagonist has no clue why. She explains that her assumptions made her treat him poorly without reason, so she's apologizing. Choi Hyun-sun asks what was going through her mind. Soo-young mentions she got the wrong impression because of someone she used to work with. This piques the protagonist's interest. It all started with a superior's kid in the association. This kid caused a lot of unnecessary harm to others. The real culprit walked away without a scratch, leaving the rest to take the fall. After that, she decided she needed to be more assertive. Choi Hyun-sun assures her he's okay now. He wasn't too upset about it. She thanks him once again. Our guy is starting to think she's really sweet. Choi Hyun-sun suddenly remembers something. He says he has a question but reassures her it's okay if she doesn't want to answer. She quickly responds that she'll share what she can. Soo-young tells him to go ahead and ask. That's just how she is. Choi Hyun-sun thinks she's quite naive. He warns her it might be tough to hear since it's about her ability. Soo-young says she figured it was about that. She spends a few minutes breaking it down for him. It's called Beast Transformation, and when she activates it, her strength, dexterity, and vitality get a major boost. This makes her both a tank and a warrior. The downside? She's got low magic resistance. But honestly, she didn't need to spell this out for Choi Hyun-sun. Fast forward a week, and everything's running smoothly. No more incidents for him. That first day was a whirlwind, but things calmed down after that. Actually, it's kind of boring now. His popularity took a hit in sales, but batteries and electronics are still going strong. Maybe he'll be able to snag another heroic rank skill soon. Choi Hyun-sun decides to go hunting to rack up some points. The portal employee asks for his registration. He asks for a sec. The guy's eyes widen when he sees it's from the emergency surveillance team. Then he wishes our hero a successful hunt. In the dungeon, the protagonist faces a bunch of small monsters. He calls forth a firestorm. A massive blaze erupts from his hand, and the creatures are toast. That was a solid boost to his skill set. As you'd expect from a rare rank area skill, it becomes even more powerful when combined with a shield of the same caliber. It might not hold up in higher level zones, but in these dungeons, it's pretty overpowered. Out of nowhere, his shield and arm get slashed. A stranger compliments the protagonist on his keen awareness. Choi Hyun-sun demands to know who he is. The guy seems a bit taken aback that he's not recognized, but he figures it'll make things more fun, so he decides to spill the beans about who he is. Turns out, he's Young Sung-woo, who used to be the vice leader of Suwon. The assassin claims he's seeking revenge in a way. There's only one person Young can vent his anger on, and that's Choi Hyun-sun. Our hero shouts, questioning if Young really thinks he can get away with this. But the former vice leader calmly explains that yelling won't do any good. He's activated an item that blocks sight and sound in the area. Plus, he's wearing shabby armor on purpose to avoid drawing attention. This way, anyone would think he's just some newbie who hasn't even hit level 50. Young has crafted a whole new identity, but honestly, he couldn't care less. He's set on leaving the country by the end of the day, and he's planning to pull it off with a fake passport. Young even admits he thought about going after the protagonist's family. He knows the pain of losing everything, but they were under protection. Choi Hyun-sun is furious when he hears Young say he could have taken out the guards too, but that would have made escaping Korea way tougher. So he decided to go straight for Choi Hyun-sun. In a dungeon, if someone vanishes, it takes a while for anyone to catch on. Meanwhile, Young picks up on something. He notices that the protagonist's healing speed is insanely quick. Young admits he already figured it out. He was just buying time, but he's convinced he can't lose this fight. Choi Hyun-sun suddenly realizes he might not make it out alive. Their blades clash in midair, and the protagonist gets knocked back. Young confesses he didn't expect to be blocked. He was aiming to chop off one of our hero's arms to stop the regeneration. Choi Hyun-sun opens up his portal, and he grabs the werewolf's heart. Young spots a transformation item and just laughs it off. Meanwhile, Choi Hyun-sun transforms in no time. The former vice leader admits that his stats get a huge boost. Suddenly, the wolf turns tail and bolts the other way, leaping onto a wall to prep a fire spell. It explodes right where Young was standing. The smoke makes it impossible to see what went down. But then his pursuer shows up behind him. Young taunts our hero, asking if he really thought he could get away. Just as he's about to stab, Choi Hyun-sun shoves him off and conjures another fireball. He threatens him with it. Young easily dodges the spell, but Choi Hyun-sun uses the chance to leap at him. Young blocks with his blade, and he actually seems to be having a good time. Choi Hyun-sun starts to think he might have a shot. Young quickly sidesteps, and unleashes a barrage of sword strikes on the wolf's back. The wolf spins around to crush him, only to find no one there. Young admits that the protagonist is seriously impressive, but then he asks Choi Hyun-sun if he knows his nickname. He wonders if Choi is aware of the name people used to call him by. His sword suddenly crackles with electricity. Young reveals he was once known as the Lightning Blade. The ex-vice raises his hand and throws a lightning bolt at the protagonist, leaving him paralyzed with a jolt. Young seizes the opportunity to fulfill his promise. He mentions that if Choi Kun-sung had acquired him from the beginning, he would have made great use of him. Even billions or trillions wouldn't have been wasted. The wolf regains its strength and prepares to attack again, but gets hit once more and falls. Its heels are slashed, and questions how our hero managed to break the level 20 barrier, or at least how he got so strong so fast. Choi Kun-sung shouts for him to shut up, but Young promises to spare his life if he spills the secret. Naturally, the protagonist doesn't buy it, so the ex-vice leader offers a painless death instead. That he might consider. Then Young resumes cutting into Choi Kun-sung. Apparently, his regeneration isn't holding up well under these circumstances. Honestly, things are looking pretty grim for him. He might be stuck like this forever, especially when he's up against a newbie like this guy. Choi Kun-sung is in serious agony. He's so desperate, he's thinking about confessing just to make it stop. But Young keeps going, slashing away without a break. Suddenly it clicks. This guy isn't just out for revenge. Choi Kun-sung yells for them to just end it already because he's not spilling anything. Young nods in agreement. It seems like he's not getting any info out of him. Since he needs time to break free from the body, he decides to grant the guy's wish for a quick end. Young delivers the final strike. Now he has to free himself from the other parts too. But then, something goes off the rails. A hand just punches right through him. He's totally confused. Young drops lifelessly. Meanwhile, Choi Kun-sung gets dragged until he finds his missing piece and puts it back. Turns out, Young is still breathing, but he's in for a shock with what he's witnessing. His last sight is Choi Kun-sung, still kicking. Then, the barrier crumbles along with Young, and our hero returns to normal. Choi Kun-sung never thought he'd find himself moving around without a head. Now he's left wondering what to do about Young. He figures it's best to keep this under wraps, even from the player association. Choi Kun-sung is sure that if this goes public, people will start doubting his skills. Our main guy fires up a fireball. There's no point in spilling his secret, right? Choi Kun-sung incinerates the body of the former vice leader of Siwon. Out of nowhere, begins to gather. Turns out, it's not just monsters that can trigger this. A skill book materializes from the energy. Our hero strolls over and grabs it. The spell is called Lightning Breath, boasting bonuses like paralyzing foes and creating an electric field around the user. The best part? No cooldown time. After mastering the technique, Choi Kun-sung activates the power to give it a whirl. Instantly, his body buzzes with energy. The protagonist conjures a magic missile and obliterates a boulder. His magic is way more powerful now. His level is on a whole new plane. His status screen shows all his stats boosted by 127. Plus, he earns a title for taking down a player 100 levels above him. First, he gets an achievement for defeating someone 200 levels higher. Then, another notification pops up for beating someone 300 levels above. The protagonist starts thinking he might be able to take down Young without much trouble now. Choi Kun-sung is determined to get even stronger. But he realizes he can't use ranged skills while lightning breath is active. In an online store, a buyer complains about overpriced batteries, and others agree. They decide to organize a boycott. Fast forward a month, Choi Kun-sung is checking out his store, trying to choose between two items. One item lets him sense the energy of living beings in danger nearby. The other turns all his magic into vampiric energy, sucking life from enemies. He can only afford one of them. Sadly, together they cost over 60 billion. Choi Kun-sung decides to mull it over and maybe buy one another day. Our hero kicks back and grabs the TV remote. He's planning to chill on his day off. Looks like he's checking out a news show about players. Choi Kun-sung is really enjoying some peaceful TV time. This series was created too. It's the 20th anniversary of the Cactus War. Our main guy can't help but think back to those days. On that day, everyone was on edge, worried something might go down again. But just like on the 10th anniversary, it was a false alarm. Some journalists stirred things up with fake news about fewer dungeons, sparking an online debate. In the drama, a woman pours her heart out to the guild master. Meanwhile, Choi Kun-sung is lost in thought, trying to decide which power to purchase. Suddenly, he feels a massive tremor, leaving him baffled. Not long after, a scream pierces the air. A portal opens up in the city, unleashing monsters on the people. Orcs are swarming the streets. Everyone's running for their lives. Choi Kun-sung leaps out of his bedroom window, ready to help. But our hero swoops in just in time to save her. Choi Kun-sung goes all out, burning and slashing, taking down every creature in his path. The citizens are in a state of panic. More orcs keep pouring out from the portal. Wasting no time, Choi Kun-sung unleashes a fiery tornado, wiping out that batch of monsters. But the battle's far from over. The monsters are dangerously close to the civilians. More and more monsters keep appearing, and people are constantly under attack. Out of nowhere, a player shows up. A team arrives to assist those in danger. This player mentions he'll leave the situation to Choi Kun-sung. Our hero appreciates the gesture. An emergency siren blares, announcing that martial law is now in effect. Amidst the chaos, a child is crying all alone. The military steps in to provide assistance. At that moment, the head of the association announces a new law. He's going to mobilize all the scenes of destruction are absolutely devastating. In the midst of everything, Choi Kun-sung gets a call from Li Shui. She's asking where he is. The protagonist explains he's dealing with an orc portal that just opened on the street. His leader requests a report, and he says the monsters are weak so far, with other players helping out. She then appoints an acting commander. Once things calm down, the order is to bring the players directly to Namyang Station. There's another portal open there, and only a few people are managing it. Additionally, Lee assures him that his family is safe. So, he ended up in a bomb shelter with a bunch of other families. Choi Kun-sung appreciates her concern. Now, she's pushing him to give it his all in the fight, and that's exactly what he's planning to do. Not long after, Choi Kun-sung mentions he can't afford to overthink things. He's going for the vampire mastery skill, which is almost 30 billion in cost. He's determined to wrap this up fast and head to the station. The main guy conjures up a wall of fire. In no time, the orcs are toast. Choi Kun-sung grabs a microphone from his portal. Our hero declares he's with the association too. He's trying to communicate with the other players, but it's pure chaos. Looks like it's going to be a real challenge. Once they regroup, Choi Kun-sung says he'll leave some players to guard the portal, while the rest will join him. Quickly, the train station mess is sorted out, and the protagonist just repeats the same orders. One player has something to ask. He's curious about how many portals have popped up. The exact number is unclear, but there are reports of openings all over the country. You can see the fear written all over their faces, and that really concerns our hero. Over by Namyang Station, some new creatures show up and start attacking people. Once again, folks are under attack from these monsters. One of the creatures on guard duty doesn't even notice the hit coming. It gets launched way off into the distance. Before it can even get its bearings, it's taken out with a swift axe blow. But this player knows he's in a real bind. More and more monsters are pouring out of the portal. Two other players are stressing about the incoming reinforcements. That's when a massive blaze heads their way, taking out all the monsters in one go. The wall of fire is absolutely huge. The hero checks in with the girls to see if they're alright. With reinforcements finally here, the other players are relieved they're not fighting alone anymore. One of his guys mentions that the area is pretty tricky. Since there aren't many dungeons around, there are only a few players in the city. Choi Kun-sung tells him to forget about that and just focus on helping people. Suddenly, a terrifying roar echoes. A new creature steps out of the portal, and this time, our protagonist is genuinely worried. Judging by its size, this monster is way stronger than the others. Choi Kun-sung knows he has to wrap up this fight fast. So, he launches a fiery spear at the beast. He leaps onto the monster, but both of them miss their attacks. Our hero realizes the creature isn't as tough as he thought. With one decisive hit, he ends the battle. But then, more roars echo from the portal. Turns out, that monster wasn't the boss. It was just a powered-up creature, and now a bunch more are coming through. Choi Kun-sung calls forth a flaming tornado. This time, though, it fails. The creatures are too resistant to fire. He summons his shield, then charges straight at them. He starts taking them down one by one, hacking away at them the old school way. For a second, Choi Kun-sung gets distracted by a phantom spear, and one of the monsters snags his arm, then his legs. Leaving him stuck, the spear heads right for his face, causing a big explosion. Choi Kun-sung survives, but he's now frozen in place. The creature in front of him is gigantic, way stronger than the others. He figures this must be the Lizard Man King, so he ditches his shield, holding onto just his sword. The monster starts to conjure something. A bunch of ice spears appear. They zoom toward our hero, who dodges them while other monsters close in. The first one charging gets sliced down, but right behind it, a spear is ready to strike. Choi Kun-sung quickly conjures a fire shield for protection. He leaps onto the boss, which starts casting a spell. It's a close-range breath attack. The magic is intense and destructive. Choi Kun-sung realizes he can't hold back on mana now. He activates his lightning breath. Right after, he zips away like lightning, but the boss still blocks his attack. More lizardmen rush in to help their leader. Choi Kun-sung has to fend them off at all costs. Not many players can handle a monster this tough. He's worried about what might happen to the others as the creatures swarm him. On the bright side, at least he's the main target. Choi Kun-sung unleashes a lightning strike, hitting all the enemies around him. While they're stunned, he takes them all out. Each one goes down with a single blow. An hour later, the other players are left speechless. Now, it's just the king left standing. Time to wrap this up. The monster charges in, fearless. Choi Kun-sung jumps right at it. Incredibly, he still gets scratched. Then, the king sneaks up behind him. Our guy quickly turns and counters, slashing the monster right across the face. Choi Kun-sung is completely drained of energy too. The monster's body dissolves into pure mana. All he wants now is a decent reward for all that effort. The mana transforms into a skill book. Lucky for him, it's a rare rank. This power lets him unleash a freezing breath, and he decides to learn it right away. Later on, the heroes are busy helping people evacuate. Choi Kun-sung's life and mana are slowly getting back to normal, but he's still wiped out. Suddenly, he hears something unexpected. A man on the ground gets taken down by someone. Apparently, there was one last guy hiding out, but it's all over for now. His mission is done for today. 3 days later, after the second catastrophe, the world's economy came to a halt. In Korea, they set up defense networks in big cities and evacuated the smaller towns. But this caused a major disruption in the supply chain, leaving industries unable to produce anything. Everything the main character had for sale is now gone, which means he's got nothing to sell at the moment. This makes it tougher for him to get stronger. People need to bounce back from the disaster so shops can start operating again. A helicopter is flying over the city. The pilot announces they've reached their destination. They've planned to encircle the outer areas and slowly tighten the perimeter. Other players are getting ready to jump in. Choi Kun-sung checks if everyone knows their assigned zones, and the team confirms they do. Each group will have a leader in charge, and Choi Kun-sung is the first to head in. Massive creatures start emerging from the portal. Our protagonist is in free fall, diving down with a wall of fire. The newly arrived creatures are instantly roasted. The rest are taken out by the hero's sword. It's a one-hit kill for each of them. Meanwhile, other heroes join the fray. Another monster bursts out of the portal, eager to wreak havoc, but our hero shuts it down instantly. Meanwhile, more creatures are slipping through his fire barrier. Something weird is going on, yet the trolls are heading elsewhere. Looks like they're making a run for it, but Choi Kun-sung isn't about to let that slide. He unleashes his lightning breath, then he follows up with a flaming spear. Things just got a whole lot easier for Choi. Kun-sung zips around like a lightning bolt. He smashes a troll's face. Our hero grabs another fire spear, and chucks it at another escaping monster. That makes it the 15th troll, and apparently the last one too. Out of nowhere, something else shows up. A monster appears in the area. This beast roars furiously. It's one of the top-tier monsters known. Lee mentions it'd be nice if the fight was over. There are about 100 million players, but only around 5,000 are high level, and they're running low on resources. Meanwhile, the military is handling the zones where mid-level monsters are popping up. But the trend is clear. More high-level creatures are popping up everywhere, and there aren't enough players around who can handle them. Suddenly, an emergency report comes in. The intel says a new portal just opened up in the capital. Lee's curious about what kind of monster they're dealing with this time. The report mentions a herd of wyverns. These creatures are of heroic rank. Lee checks if the guild is in that area. Her team confirms they are, but they're asking for backup. That guild is mostly made up of tanks and warriors, so they're having a tough time with these creatures. Lee inquires if there's anyone nearby who can lend a hand, and they find a group of mages in the vicinity. The leader orders them to go assist the other guild. More reports are flooding in. Our buyers are attacking another region, and where there were orcs, now there are ogres too. Another report mentions a blue dragon in Osensai. Lee recalls that Choi Kun-sung is in that area. The staff confirms it. So, he's the one calling for backup, and Lee orders an evacuation for all players in the area. The staff scrambles to relay the message. Choi Kun-sung wonders if help is on the way, and then he's told to fall back. As he makes his getaway, a piece of the building breaks off and flies through the air. The order to evacuate is repeated, and everyone is told to clear out. But Choi Kun-sung feels uneasy about leaving everything behind. Then, the building collapses right on top of him. The massive dragon watches, almost amused. Our hero manages to dodge just in time, but the creature hits him again. The giant hand slams into the ground. Fortunately, the protagonist finds cover inside a house. Choi Kun-sung thinks it's strange that he's the only target. Then, when the protagonist looks, he's stunned. The dragon is staring him down. Then the creature charges in to demolish everything. Half the building is hurled into the sky, tossed like it's nothing. The massive creature seems to be toying with him. Choi Kun-sum tries to fight back with a fiery tornado. Refusing to give up, he makes another attempt, launching an explosion right at the monster's face. Choi Kun-sum seizes the moment to retreat, but the monster charges at him without hesitation. He quickly readies a spell. An ice barrier forms, and he slides underneath it, dodging the giant's attack. He's already worried about how long his coat will last. With no other option, Choi Kun-sum prepares to fight, activating his lightning breath. Our guy is about to try something risky. Right in front of the monster, Choi Kun-sum disappears and reappears, striking at the dragon's scales, but it doesn't even leave a mark. The monster retaliates, landing a hit on him, leaving him dazed. Another strike follows immediately. Choi Kun-sum attempts to block it with his sword, but he's sent flying backward. This creature's scales are insanely tough, but there's gotta be a weak spot somewhere. Aiming for the monster's stomach this time. Still, nothing works. He's almost crushed right after. The dragon remains unscathed. The beast roars in anger. The dragon tries to strike again, but our hero is quicker. Something bizarre happens to our protagonist. The dragon is draining his electricity, sucking away all his energy. It's like Choi Kun-sum is taking a beating, until he crashes down from the sky. He's lying on the ground, hurt. When he glances up, the dragon is about to swallow him whole. Suddenly, everything goes pitch black. Our guy finds himself inside the beast's stomach. He's barely conscious, thinking it can't end like this. His family is counting on him. Choi Kun-sum clutches his shattered sword. He's hit rock bottom. He plunges the sword into the beast's flesh. He senses something changing. His sword is getting powered up, and he's slowly regaining strength. The immortality book has leveled up to heroic rank. He knows he's never been in worse shape, but he can't just give up. He starts devouring the dragon's raw flesh. Meanwhile, Lee gets the news that Choi Kun-sum has died. It's the intelligence team that confirms it. She's in shock because she was the one who ordered everyone to retreat. The issue is, Choi Kun-sum was the guy responsible for sealing the portal. So, when the dragon showed up, he was right there. The girl mentions he tried to retreat, but he couldn't manage it. Lee can barely contain her sadness. If his family has been notified. Sadly, no official notice was sent, but there's an online CoverGirl list. So they assume the family knows. Our protagonist tumbles from the fleshy wall. He blacks out for a bit, but when he comes to, he's relieved to find his health restored. Now he's planning to use all the blood around him. First, he makes some cuts and starts absorbing energy, but then, he feels a tremor. The monster's stomach is shifting. To avoid falling, to anchor himself to the flesh. Our hero is dangling by just one arm. He wonders what's happening outside. The massive dragon is roaring in pain. Even the players are clueless about what's going on. To them, the creature just started thrashing out of nowhere. The monster is crying out in agony. It even swings its tail into nearby buildings. Out of nowhere, a player spots a building crashing down towards her. Her teammate rushes in to help at the last possible moment. All anyone can see is the massive impact. Choi Kun-sum finally discovers what he's been searching for, the main artery. Our guy jumps right in. He fires up his flaming blade. With that, he slices through the artery. From inside the beast, you can hear its screams echoing. The protagonist hangs onto the edge of the artery. Now, his recovery speeds up even more. Choi Kun-sum seizes the moment and launches a barrage of attacks. This time, he's moving on his own 2 feet. He keeps going until he reaches the heart. Our hero just plunges his weapon into the organ. To be sure, he makes a few extra cuts, until it bursts into pieces. His blade starts soaking up all the creature's mana. That's when he gets a bunch of updates. His immortality rank goes up along with his lightning breath, which levels up to lightning dragon breath. Even the skill names get an upgrade this time. He earns a title for taking down a monster 200 levels higher than him. His vampiric blade gets a makeover, turning into a draconic blood blade. Then something else shows up. A skill book materializes right in front of him. This ability gives a huge boost to the user's physical endurance. Choi Kun-sum just scored another insane power-up. The dragon suddenly hits the ground. At first, it started flailing around. Then it twisted and turned until it finally went limp. One player wonders if it caught some disease, but his buddy doubts dragons can get sick like that. Out of nowhere, something emerges where the beast used to be. A helicopter is on its way to the new spot, and the players inside are already dreaming of a break after this hunt. But in the back, there's someone who isn't in the mood to chat. She's struggling to wrap her head around what just happened. Lee can't believe the association is trying to snatch the contract. One guy tells her to chill out. With the young man gone, they're in a tight spot. That's why they're trying to cut their losses. But she can't believe they have any humanity left. Lee starts to lose her grip. Her energy begins to push everyone in the room. She's questioning if they'd act the same if it were her. The guy pleads with her to stop and finally agrees to drop the idea. That's why she's so lost in her thoughts. An urgent message comes in. She tells the guy to spill the details. The report says the blue dragon is dead. One player wonders if a group took it down. But as far as anyone knows, no one's capable of that. There are rumors that the player who got swallowed is still kicking. He took out the dragon from the inside. Lee wants to know who this person is. The man says it's Choi Kun-sum. She lights up with excitement at that moment. Choi Kun-sum downs a whole bottle of water, relieved to be fully healed. A player offers him some clothes. Choi Kun-sum suddenly remembers something. He asks to borrow a phone to call his family, and the girl offers to help. Choi Kun-sum makes the call. Someone answers cautiously. He tells his mom it's her son. She pauses, then asks if it's really him. Choi Kun-sum explains he saw his name on the deceased list, but it was a mistake. He's been fine all along. Our hero tries to reassure her, saying he's really okay and there's no need to worry. Choi Kun-sun tells her he's eating well and staying warm. His mother expresses her relief and happiness that he's alive. She also mentions that someone from the association visited her. They gave her compensation for what happened. The woman couldn't say much, only that she was sorry and felt responsible. In the end, she's just relieved it wasn't true. His mother is overjoyed that he's alive. Choi Kun-sun is at a loss for words. The girl offers him a tissue. Choi Kun-sun gratefully accepts it. After everything, he sits on the sidewalk, eager to see how much his blade has changed. This time, it has several new effects, like a huge mana boost. But there's something special. It now has a linked item. Naturally, it can evolve too, as long as it absorbs blood from a draconic creature. Now he's testing out the electric dragon breath, which amps up his lightning abilities even more. At least Choi Kun-sun managed to evolve the skill. This time, he notices all his attributes have jumped up by 30 points, and he even scores a magic bonus. Now he's worried about when they'll finally bring him some real clothes. Choi Kun-sun just wants to head home. Suddenly, out of nowhere, something's falling from the sky, and it's coming down like a missile. The protagonist realizes it's his leader. She lands and instantly wraps him in a hug, super relieved to see he's okay. Our hero is glad to see her too, but Lee quickly notices he's not wearing any clothes. Even Choi Kun-sun feels a bit awkward. He explains that his clothes got melted by acid. Finally, our hero gets a fresh set of clothes. Lee, still a bit flustered, approaches him and mentions witnessing a heartfelt reunion. But then he adds he's kind of surprised. She asks, surprised about what? He says he didn't expect she'd be into younger guys. He jokes that kid was a secret boyfriend. Lee tells him to cut it out with the jokes. The leader steps in and says she called off the mission, so she's curious about why they're still hanging around. A mage chimes in, saying that after what she saw, her curiosity got the better of her, and she just had to check it out up close. Then this girl gives the main guy a once-over and casually mentions that he's totally her type. She even asks if he's seeing anyone, but Lee brushes her hand away. She tells him to quit acting like he just went through a rough patch. The girl insists she's serious and can't figure out why the leader is so upset. Lee keeps saying that Choi Kun-sun really needs to rest right now. Everyone is dying to know how the main guy took down the dragon solo, but she thinks it's pretty rude to ask about it. Lee then tells the guy to head to the hospital, and of course, he agrees. Plus, her helicopter is going to be used for something else. They'll act as emergency transport. Lee then leaps off, taking Choi Kun-sun with her. Even though she's a bit miffed, she admits she was kind of rude too. But no doubt, she's super curious about how the main guy managed to take down the blue dragon. The other guy figures this man must be someone special, just based on how people treat him. He thinks he'll just ask her about it later. On the forum, folks are scrambling to get their hands on Choi Kun-sun's stuff. They're so desperate, they're blaming the person who first suggested the boycott. The anger's so real, they're even looking to suspend the account of the one who started it. But our main guy won't see those messages because he keeps a low profile. A while later, Korea faced some tough times, but they managed to handle the disaster with minimal damage. In no time, they began rebuilding the infrastructure. Then they kicked off research on these new magic stones. Even though society was a bit shaky, things started to get back to normal. Choi Kun-sun checks out his battery stock. Luckily, that market didn't take too much of a hit. Once the shop reopened, recharging batteries became his main focus. Decides he's going to buy them all up. The main guy adds the batteries to his cart to sell. Then he figures it's time to hike up the prices. Somehow, people are still buying this stuff. Our hero can barely wrap his head around it. So, given the situation, he figures, why not hike up the prices even more? A few days pass, and Choi Kun-sun swings by the store, but they're still out of stock. The clerk mentions that more will arrive soon since the factories are back up and running. Hopefully, this kind of issue won't happen again. Sadly, there's nothing they can do at the moment. Choi Kun-sun decides to head out. The vendor offers to give him a call when the batteries arrive, but our guy says he'll just swing by later. On his way back, he thinks it would be ideal to buy directly from the factory. Choi Kun-sun had tried contacting them before the disaster, but they wouldn't sell to individuals. Later, he called again, offering to make bulk purchases, but the company still turned him down. Our hero starts wondering if he needs to buy a company and a warehouse. Maybe it's smarter to just open his own electronics store. A few days later, Choi Kun-sun goes shopping. The place is packed. His sister calls out to him. Choi Kun-sun compliments his manager on her leadership skills. She responds that she has to give her all for the success of his store. His manager lets him know that the batteries have been sent to the warehouse. The protagonist decides to check it out, and then she asks if she should order more. But that decision will vary from time to time. His sister invites him to have dinner with their mom. This time, they can afford something a bit more upscale. It seems like sales are slowing down. Their sales have almost come to a halt, but at least the week had its good moments. Maybe it's time to start spending points, he thinks. He checks out what he's planning to buy. Right now, he has 5 heroic skills, but only Dragon Breath is active. On second thought, that's the only tank-type power he has. Choi Kun-sun considers whether he should get another active skill, or maybe something like teleportation to dodge danger. Actually, he could afford both. Active skills are less pricey than passive ones. But then he realizes something. Teleportation abilities are quite costly. He recalls that the personal space storage skill was also pretty pricey. Also, heroic rank abilities can only teleport living things. There are more limitations, but at least he can check out the product details. Our guy finds the best option, which costs a whopping 40 billion points, and he goes for it. After making the purchase, Choi Gunsung heads over to the warehouse. He's eager to try out this new skill right away. He sets his sights on a corner of the room. Before he even finishes saying, "Teleport," he's already standing there. The skill works flawlessly this time, and it's super handy. Next, he tries out the long-distance version. Now he's planning to. He browses through the elemental powers, but nothing really grabs his attention. Then, he stumbles upon a dark spell that shoots a beam, draining both life and mana. Plus, the price is surprisingly reasonable. There's a warning that if you're not careful, you could accidentally drain your own life, but that's exactly what he's looking for. However, Dragon Breath absorbs this spell and evolves into a unique heroic rank ability. Now his electricity has transformed into black lightning, so he can control it better. The protagonist decides to venture into a dungeon. Choi Gunsung heads into a cave, and suddenly, a bunch of creatures rush at him. The monsters get super close. He blasts them with a lightning beam. All that's left is the monster's mana. The protagonist thinks this new attack is incredible. Spending all his points was totally worth it. 5 hours later, he's managed to take down 5,000 monsters, but now Choi Gunsung is completely wiped out. That's it for today, folks. At the end of the day, he heads to his shop. There, he finds his sister who should have gone home by now. She mentions the batteries are in the storage room, and he can go check. Choi Gunsung goes to take a look. 30 minutes later, he comes back, and his sister is still there. He suggests they head home together. She wants to discuss what happened when they thought Choi Gunsung had died. His sister starts by saying their mom had a breakdown when she got the news, and even after finding out he was okay, she cried for ages. But the real issue came after that. That's when they got fined for the rented gear and their contract got axed. Choi Gunsung is crushed when he hears the news. His sister mentions they filed a bunch of complaints, but the response was that the law was on the other side. They were told to attend an inheritance meeting. Even the lawyers said their hands were tied. In the end, they had to move out of the house that was under the protagonist's name. They demanded Choi Gunsung return the bonus he had received, but eventually, everything got sorted out. Lee Suri stepped in, fixed everything, apologized on her knees, saying it was all a big misunderstanding. But his sister isn't buying the whole misunderstanding story. Choi Gunsung vows to dig into what really happened. She says it wasn't supposed to be a secret, but she wanted him to know the truth. The protagonist thanks her for being upfront. Choi Gunsung mentions he has a meeting with Captain Lee Suri. The secretary informs him she's not in right now. The protagonist says he talked to her earlier on the phone, and she said he could wait in her office. So, the girl leads our hero to the room. Once they're in the office, she offers him some coffee. He turns it down, and then the secretary heads out. At last, he's by himself. Choi Gunsung kicks in his psychometry power. He looks up his own name. He witnesses the moment she got the news of his death. It's obvious she was really shaken. He even feels a bit touched by it. Next, he sees her having a heated discussion with her boss about how he's treating the hero's family. The boss just says he's sticking to the law. Lee urges him to drop the charges, but he won't budge. She believes someone who died for the country deserves more respect. The guy on the phone insists he's just following protocol. Lee warns that if he doesn't drop the charges, she'll quit the organization right away. He argues that would break her contract, but she counters, saying her contract is so odd it might not even hold up legally. The man questions if she'd really defy the Korean government. He accuses her of being too emotional and suggests they discuss it later. She was chatting with the minister. Choi Gunsung is genuinely grateful. Now he knows exactly who he's up against. The Minister of Dimensional Affairs is done for. Lee shows up and asks if he waited long. But actually, he got there way too early. She admits she was curious since he wanted to meet her so suddenly. Choi Gunsung says he has to cancel his contract. Lee is at a loss for words. But the main character reveals he knows what the minister tried to pull. She apologizes on the minister's behalf, but Choi Gunsung says it's unnecessary since he knows she was the one who fixed everything in the end. The protagonist agrees that it needs to happen. Choi Gunsung wants to meet the minister in person to apologize directly. Naturally, she's shocked. But the minister is the one who gets the most nervous, thinking the kid is too cocky just because he has unique abilities. The minister is baffled, claiming he has no idea what he did wrong. One of his staff pipes up, saying Choi Gunsung is just a clueless kid. That's why another staff member agrees that they should deny the request. The minister insists he was just sticking to the law. He can't wrap his head around why he needs to apologize. In his mind, he hasn't done anything wrong. His subordinate backs him up, thinking the minister was more than fair, and now the kid's just throwing a fit. They figure it's time to teach him a lesson. For a second, the minister's on board, but he's curious about how they'd pull it off, especially since the whole thing's already public. That's when his staff goes silent. In the end, they get a tongue lashing for speaking without thinking. Then the old man demands the protagonist come to him. Since Choi Gunsung wants an apology, he should be the one to show up. The two fools rush off to deliver the message. The minister declares he would never go to him. Choi Gunsung chuckles at the irony of being summoned. But in the end, it's the minister who's running late. The protagonist taps into his new ability and figures out that this is the spot where shady officials are in cahoots with big guilds and dungeon gate managers. At least all the staff members are just regular folks. But for our hero, that's actually a plus. The secretary shows up and says the minister wants to see him. Our hero is totally prepared for this. As soon as he steps into the room, the old man is taken aback by his appearance. He mentions our hero is the same age as his grandson. The minister starts rambling about the virtues of youth, but the protagonist cuts him off, eager to hear the apology. Meanwhile, he uses his psychometry. The old man claims he was just following the rules and couldn't do anything else. Choi Gunsung finds out the minister was plotting with others against him. Then the minister insists he was just trying to stick to the rules, but the protagonist questions if he hasn't done things too terrible to be considered legal. First up, there's the issue of a fine for rented equipment used during a company mission, and then there's the cancellation fee for breaking the contract. Choi Gunsung was officially declared killed in action during a mission. The protagonist can't wrap his head around how that makes any sense. He wants to know what was going through the minister's mind when he did all that. Unfortunately, minister is furious about being lectured by a kid, but Choi Gunsung points out that the minister started it, and calls him an idiot. Instantly, the minister is livid, loudly declaring his official title. He claims our hero is just a clueless brat. The minister keeps hurling insults, calling him poor and inferior. He can't stand being treated like this by a young guy. Losing patience, Choi Gunsung shouts back, suggesting he should just get rid of him. At that moment, the minister freezes. The guy ends up wetting his pants in fear. Choi Kansan tells him to use some common sense and think before speaking. The staff watching the whole scene stay completely silent. Then he mentions he recorded everything that was said. They're going to report him to the police and press charges for verbal assault. As he steps out of the room, you can hear him screaming in despair. The main guy realizes this new power is way more useful than he thought. Enrage is a common skill that makes the target go berserk and lose control. A few days later, a corruption scandal involving the minister comes to light. It all started with regular players taking action. Eventually, even the guilds joined the cause. Choi Kansan is chilling at home. He's checking out his psychometry skill, which lets him read the memories of objects. While he's thinking about how much he'll use this power, his leader gives him a call. He wasn't expecting it to be her, but he picks up the phone with a smile. She wants to meet up, and Choi Kansan is cool with it. So, she asks where he's at. Choi Kansan tells her to hang on for a second. He spots a restaurant near his place. He suggests it to her, and Lee agrees. The girl is set to arrive in half an hour. She's planning to be straightforward. Lee wants to find out if the scandal involving the minister was his doing. She already suspects he's the only one capable of pulling off something like that. The commander mentions that government officials are pretty touchy about this matter. Lee warns him that they'll be suspicious of the protagonist, so he needs to tread carefully. Choi Kansan is curious about the possible consequences. His leader warns he could face arrest for trespassing and theft. The protagonist wonders if it could get worse due to the special laws for players. Lee advises that if it comes to that, he'd better have public opinion backing him. Choi Kansan thinks that's solid advice. But since he's not a criminal, he figures he has nothing to worry about. Lee reminds him once more to be cautious. She notes that high-ranking officials aren't fond of powerful and influential players. But for the moment, they'll keep things low-key and careful. They're bound to make a lot of new enemies. But he chooses to stay silent for now. Lee chuckles, saying that's actually a smart move. It's best for both of them to avoid drawing any unnecessary attention. A missile is fired straight at its target. We're in Pyongyang, North Korea. The soldier hopes the target is obliterated. But then a creature's voice says otherwise. Suddenly, the monster lets out a roar and slime starts gushing from its mouth. In mere seconds, the soldiers are reduced to skeletons. The ability doesn't stop there. It keeps spreading, melting everything in its path. Not even a fighter jet manages to escape. The city is left in ruins. Meanwhile, back at the cafe, Lee announces she has to go. But she's not the only one getting that message. Choi Kansan decides to join her. The message is an urgent call for only high-level players. Lee mentions a special code has been issued, so she'll reach out to headquarters first. Choi Kansan points out that the internet is already buzzing about it. North Korea has fallen, and the monster responsible might head here next. This is way more serious than he thought. A spokesperson confirms the situation is indeed dire. The intel says the neighboring country is gone, and all high-level players in North Korea failed to stop the creature known as emoji. On top of that, hordes of monsters keep pouring out of portals. Many refugees are now arriving at the borders. The monsters are closing in fast. The head honcho of the organization steps up. This time, he's got a different explanation. Only top-tier players were called up because their mission is to hold the line against the emoji and push back the monsters charging at the front. The protagonist isn't thrilled about that last part. Fast forward 10 days to Payu. A bunch of orcs are on the attack, but there are already players holding the border. This swordsman is slicing through monsters like it's nothing. He wonders how long he'll be stuck fighting these weaklings. Even the protagonist is finding it dull. A werewolf lunges at him, but he slices it clean in half. Other players are in the thick of it too, all working to defend the border. But Choi Kansan is questioning how much longer this will last. His sister's been sending him supplies, so he's been getting by out here. Over in China, monsters are crossing a bridge. The military opens fire on them. A massive red dragon starts crossing the river. Suddenly, an explosion hits it. A group of players halts its advance. Another blast strikes its chest, and now the dragon is raging. Then, out of nowhere, a player effortlessly slices through it. The battle wraps up in no time. A soldier approaches to have a word with him. The intel says the emoji is heading their way. The guy seems pretty pleased about it. This is the unranked beast that wiped out a North Korean city. A new octane has just shown up, but they haven't figured out its level yet. However, they did manage to discover its rank. Turns out, it's a legendary creature. China's military is going all out. They're throwing everything they've got at it. The plan is that whoever takes down the emoji will score a first kill achievement. Usually, that kind of achievement gives a massive boost in attributes. He's eager to jump on this chance. At the border, there are over 181 different ranks. More than 3,000 high-level players are gathered. Finally, the emoji makes its appearance. Naturally, the swordsman is the most pumped. Everyone charges in together. A monk activates his ability to back up the team. Magic starts raining down from all directions. But the creature gets fed up with losing. It triggers the fear status, freezing victims for up to 10 seconds. The players are stuck, unable to move. Before long, they start getting devoured. Others are sent flying by its tail. Some are so terrified they can't even twitch a muscle. Emoji lets loose a lightning bolt, taking out a huge crowd. Choi Kun-sung is checking the news on his phone. The report says a disaster hit the Chinese border, killing thousands of high-level players. Our main guy was considering the wild instinct ability, but he switched gears and picked something with metal resistance because he's after the title for taking down that monster. In the end, he scores a heroic power with just 2 perks, mind protection and boosted willpower. He drops 29 billion points and initially, he doesn't notice any changes. So, he decides to test it out to see what it can do. Meanwhile, a guy is shouting about being humiliated. Some players get curious and start watching. As the guy leaves, he notices he's attracting attention. The other players are staring and judging him. Eventually, he walks away, head down. Choi Kun-sung thinks there are tons of applicants, but the reason is clear. Everyone's after the first kill achievement, though some have different motives. But it looks like the acceptance rate is pretty low. Not many people make it through. Choi Kun-sung gets called in by the secretary. First, she verifies his identity. Then, she lets him in. Our main guy thinks this room feels just like a scene from a movie interrogation. Once he gives the nod, they kick things off. Everything goes dead quiet. Out of nowhere, a notification appears. It says he's been hit by some mental ability, leaving him confused for 10 seconds, but then his passive ability kicks in. Thanks to that, he shakes off the confusion. The test wraps up and he passes with flying colors. After it's all done, he heads out. The person inside admits our guy is really something else. Then, Lee calls for the next candidate. The South Korean government decides to push north. Then, a ship fires off a missile. It strikes a blue dragon, bringing the beast down. So far, everything's going smoothly. The teamwork between the players and the military is paying off. That area is crawling with creatures. The monsters charge into battle, but the players handle them without breaking a sweat. A week later, we're in Beijing, China. The leaders are strategizing on how to defeat the emoji. Suddenly, the mountain bursts into flames. A politician wants to call in Beijing's top heroes, but Anoda thinks it's too hasty. What if another legendary monster shows up? One politician can't grasp why their heroes couldn't defeat that beast. He's convinced that rallying the elite will do the trick. They're bound to succeed. The emoji lets out a terrifying roar, scaring the players out of their wits. Then, it begins its rampage. The survivors are getting some healing. Not for long though. The creature demolishes everything in sight. A tank player shields his team. Those still on their feet launch a coordinated assault, but the monster creates an air barrier with another roar, pushing the players back. Someone asks for the number of survivors. Only about 10 are left. The leader kicks off Plan B. Shields are set on the ground. Arrows are ready. Those who can't fight solo get support. Another barrage of attacks rains down on the monster. The leader orders them to head toward Korea. Choi Hyun-sung catches a news report about the emoji heading straight for central China. He starts doubting if he'll ever snag that title. And he's not the only one feeling that way. Honestly, everyone seems pretty bummed out. Out of nowhere, the whole cafe begins to tremble. It feels like an earthquake is hitting. A notice blares that the emoji is charging their way, urging everyone to gear up for a fight. The players are baffled by this sudden twist, but some are pumped. They see it as a golden chance to hunt the beast. No one's more hyped than Choi Hyun-sung. He's itching to score that achievement. But a girl chimes in, saying there's no reason to celebrate. The Chinese lost the battle again. The survivors are actually leading the creature to Korea. That was their last-ditch effort. One player loses it when he hears this. Some even argue it should be illegal. Tensions start bubbling up among the players. Lee steps in, urging everyone to chill out. The main focus now is getting battle ready. Choi Hyun-sung is thrilled to see her. One of the Chinese players is sprinting like there's no tomorrow. The girl notices they're getting close. Just when you think it's over, a monster snatches him up, swallowing the player whole in one gulp. This creature is massive, way bigger than anyone expected. Everyone tenses up when they get a full view of its head. The emoji glares at them all, unleashing its power. But the protagonist's new abilities let him handle it like a champ. The battle kicks off, and the tanks rush in. Warriors attack every part of its body with their enchanted weapons. Elemental spells of every kind rain down on its scales. Some players shout warnings about the storm swirling around the beast. A bolt of black lightning strikes the emoji. Choi Hyun-sung feels more powerful than ever, all thanks to the buffs. The player casting them is focused on supporting the entire group. A new team jumps into the fray, but these tanks and warriors can't do much against the beast. The protagonist is part of a long-range attack group. The first injuries are starting to show. Some players rush over to help, who might have to absorb the blood on the ground. But there's something else going on. He spots his friend in the thick of the fight. Lee moves so fast, it's almost impossible to keep up with her. She's the first one to actually make the emoji bleed. Choi Hyun-sung can't help but feel a little envious of her skills. The only way he can get better is by gaining new abilities. His ultimate goal is to hit 1 trillion points, and then he'll have made it. Half an hour later, the intense battle is still raging on. Choi Hyun-sung realizes it's not as tough as he initially thought. Suddenly, he notices something off. The monster starts drooling. The mage catches on and warns everyone about a new attack. The creature spits out acid from its mouth. The nearby fighters manage to dodge it. But now the acid is heading straight for the mages. They quickly work together to create a protective barrier. Unfortunately, one layer of the barrier shatters. The command is to keep reinforcing the barrier. All the mages give it everything they've got. The tanks charge in to provide backup. Together, they launch an attack on the monster. This forces it to stop spewing acid. Then, the magical rain starts up again, leading to a massive explosion. The protagonist thinks the battle is nearing its end, but emoji is starting to lose its cool. The creature goes into rage mode. It's a skill that lowers defense but boosts attack. The tanks charge back into fight, but one of them gets caught by some weird effect. The player receives a new message. Meanwhile, everyone gets this update. A warning pops up that the skill failed to activate. Another swordsman swings by to attack, but he notices something off. Something's definitely wrong. A warning goes out to dodge. Sadly, the mage group is getting wiped out. Some players realize the monster is deliberately targeting them. Choi Kun-sung makes a run for it to escape the danger. He searches for a safe spot, but then comes the realization that our hero is under a new effect from Emu for 10 seconds, so his skills are cancelled. The creature's presence is terrifying. It slams its tail down aiming for Choi Kun-sung. It was a close call. The creature is faster than he thought. Another group of mages gets paralyzed, but the monster isn't giving up. The creature crashes into the protagonist's shield with its body, sending him flying into a mountain. Our hero comes to. He's just a bit banged up, but man, that was way too close. Choi Kun-sung never saw it coming that the beast had another mind trick besides fear. The battlefield is a total mess. It's only now that he realizes he's lost his blade. He has to track it down before anything else. Suddenly, a new update pops up. The Draconic Blood Blade has just leveled up. Even our hero can't believe it. He scans the battlefield. Choi Kun-sung sharpens his focus, and finally spots his weapon lodged in the monster's tail. And he can't just summon it back. Despite everything, the battle's going pretty well. You can already sense victory is close. Another alert about the sword's evolution. Maybe it's because the blade is soaking up the blood of this legendary beast. Two other players jump in to attack the monster's face, and they land some serious hits. With each blow, more blood gushes out. New blades stab into its body. The creature's losing, but it's not backing down easily. Emoji starts spewing acid again. Some players barely dodge it. They quickly retaliate. Lee charges in, and rips off one of its horns. The attacks just keep coming. Even the mages jump back into the action. Explosions burst all over its body again. Emoji shifts its stance, and Lee is the first to catch it. She leaps as high as she can, kicking the monster right in the chin. For the first time, Emoji goes down. The players don't waste a second and plunge their blades into its body. One player starts to think they've actually won. Then, a message pops up. Everyone gets a title for taking down a legendary monster together. Celebrate all over the battlefield. Emoji starts to dissolve into pure mana. But mana is being pulled toward a specific point. The blade has just transformed. The protagonist retrieves his sword. He then gets a new update. A title for being the first person ever to own a legendary weapon. Choi Kun-sung is curious to see how much it's changed. The new skill lets you unleash a draconic blood attack. For a legendary rank, that sounds pretty epic. Choi Kun-sung also didn't realize that unique rank achievements are classified separately. So, it turns out there are other players with unique items too. In the end, our main guy feels pretty content. Suddenly, another message pops up. He gets a reward for helping take down the monster, and it's different for each player. Since Choi Kun-sung snagged first place, all his stats get a sweet boost of +10. Our hero owes it all to his trusty sword, but now he's scratching his head over how to split the loot. The cash gets divvied up based on everyone's contribution to the fight, but our guy isn't keen on revealing his level to anyone. He makes up his mind. Choi Kun-sung is already stoked with what he's got. The news about the emoji's defeat blew up. Everyone was glued to Korea. People were buzzing about who was involved, how the monster got taken down, and what the rewards were. But the government stepped in to keep everything hush-hush. Still, requests to sell items kept pouring in. Loads of players flocked to Korea after that. The urge to rack up new achievements and become the top dog went viral. Choi Kun-sung is chilling in his shop's storage room. The protagonist figures out that snagging those auction items is going to be a real challenge. He got a reward for joining the expedition and an invite to the item auction, but they're expecting prices to hit the billions. In the end, Choi Kun-sung decides to skip it. He already has what he needs. Surprised, he asks if something's up. She asks if there always has to be a reason for her to call. Choi Kun-sung, a bit embarrassed, admits she usually only calls when something's going on. Lee laughs and agrees. She actually has a question. He's interested in a legendary rank item. Obviously he is. Who wouldn't be? Lee offers to buy one for him at the emoji auction. Choi Kun-sung asks if she wants anything in return. And of course, she does. She makes that clear. It's not hard to guess what she's after. A slavery contract, as Choi Kun-sung calls it. Lee explains the government is all in on acquiring the emoji items. And honestly, no player out there has more cash than they do. But our main guy finds it odd because only those who join the expedition can participate in the auction. That's why she's chatting with him. They're the only ones who battled the monster and are part of the association. Choi Kun-sung wonders why she doesn't just snag all the items herself. Lee says she'd love to, but one of the abilities suits him better than her. So, our hero wants to check out the items first before they continue their chat. She mentions that everyone will only get a peek at the auction items a day before it starts. That's definitely cutting it close. Lee explains that the government fears if they reveal the items too soon, someone might try to swipe them. The protagonist figures that's already happening, but he decides he'll only make a move after seeing what's up for grabs. Lee assures him he won't regret it. Choi Kun-sung is holding the list in his hands. The skill is called Dark Dragon's Pierce. It's pretty wild because it lets you control a black lightning bolt with no cooldown and barely any side effects. Our guy is curious if his heroic rank power can absorb something at a legendary level 1. He asks her if she's sure she doesn't want that ability. Lee explains that most of her skills rely on divine type mana. His buddy mentions that if he passes on the power, it'll just end up with some random mage. The government already has someone lined up to receive the book. That's why they're on a tight schedule. Choi Kun-sung has to make a decision right now. He agrees, but only if he can pay a fee later to end the lifelong contract. Lee thinks that's asking a lot. Choi Kun-sung says he'll walk away if he can have that option. Lee agrees, but only if she can charge interest. The protagonist is almost scared to find out how much it'll cost. But she mentions it's a 5% rate, which sounds simple, but it's actually compound interest. That's the best deal she can offer, so Choi Kun-sung goes for it. Lee confirms it's all settled. Now she's going to report to the higher-ups, and the protagonist thanks her. But she insists she didn't do anything special. The auctioneer asks if there are any more bids. He starts counting up to 5. The room feels cramped, and to give anyone a chance to make a new offer. Then, it's announced that player Lee will take home the Dark Dragon Spear. The final bid was over 1 billion. It was way more competitive than anyone thought. Choi Kun-sung can't wrap his head around a player having that much cash. Apparently some corporations are backing certain players. The skill book and the weapon together are worth 2 trillion. Now, it's time for the last item. A staff member brings it onto the stage. It's the book containing the fury of the Dark Dragon. Later, the protagonist is by himself, going over his contract. Maybe a bit of regret is creeping in. The debt he owes is 1 trillion. With compound interest, he might end up tied to the association for life. Lee is dealing with another issue. The first conquest message didn't pop up like she thought it would. She feels like something's not right. During the expedition, the recognition for being the first person with a historical rank didn't show up. She ended up in second place for her contributions. Nobody mentioned who took the top spot. When she hunted down her first heroic monster, things were different. They actually recorded who came in first. Lee got the achievement for being the first to snag something of that rank. Unfortunately, she missed out on the reward because she didn't have the right gear. But she figured it would be the same this time unless someone had already taken down a legendary monster before her. Lee is baffled by the situation. She wanted it so badly that she auctioned off those items at the end. She feels like she played herself. Lee thinks she should have been more upfront with her friend. Out of nowhere, Cory Kan-sung shows up and congratulates her. He mentions he's about to head out. Lee looks pensive and asks if he managed to learn the skill. Cory Kan-sung confirms he did, successfully. She wishes him a safe journey back home. Our hero senses something's not quite right. Of all the primary achievements through her, so Lee switched up the item order. That's why his book ended up being the last one. Everything falls into place, and Cory Kan-sung thinks it makes sense. She was the one who wanted that title so badly. Plus, the government was supporting the whole thing. Cory Kan-sung assures her it's all good. He gets why she did what she did. Lee feels a bit embarrassed. The main character decides it's time to head out. She feels like he didn't expect anything from her, so she vows to herself never to act like that again. Cory Kan-sung knows his buddy is super straightforward. Lee could have just kept quiet, and nothing would have changed. But now he feels guilty for snagging all the glory. The protagonist opens up his personal space. He pulls out the golden book. He's all set to learn from it, but he's hoping his skills will level up. In the end, one power doesn't just absorb the other, they merge. Later on, he'll be recognized as the first to master a legendary rank skill. Cory Kan-sung thinks joining the expedition was a genius move. Just from the titles, he racked up 450 points and scored a wild new skill he's itching to try out. A dark energy mass engulfs the battlefield. The monsters are wiped out. The ones in charge dive right in, and unleashes his new skill. Everything around him is obliterated. Honestly, it happened way quicker than he thought. The creatures try to escape, but it's pointless. They all get wiped out. Cory Kan-sung wants to track down a bat-type dungeon. He figures there might be a good spot nearby. His leader messages him, asking him to come back. He wonders if something's up. When he calls the protagonist, she guesses he just left a dungeon. Lee asks if he's planning to hunt in the northern area. The leader mentions that not many people are in that region for the lower-level zones. She asks if he can lend a hand. The pay is double what the emergency team gets. But he knows nobody wants that gig because players don't usually level up by hunting easy monsters. Cory Kan-sung agrees to help out. Lee is really grateful and says she'll send a helicopter for him. He figures the situation must be pretty urgent. She explains there are a lot of new dungeons popping up there. It's not quite at the point of needing an emergency alert yet, but if things keep going this way, it will be soon. Cory Kan-sung assures everyone that he'll give it his all. Fast forward 2 weeks, we're in North Korea, and our main guy gets a notification that he's hit the 3 million mark, unlocking the mercenary system. Choi Kan-sung is totally clueless about what this message means. As he's trying to figure it out, he suddenly senses an attack coming his way. So, he busts out the black lightning. By the time he's done, there's nothing left of the creatures but dust. Strangely, his status hasn't changed at all. Opens up a window that lets him hire mercenaries. The ranks start at heroic and go down from there. That's what's available to him right now. He decides to check out one of them, a tank loaded with some awesome abilities. But this dude's price tag is 600 billion, and he's only available for a couple of hours. So, he checks out the rare ranked ones. But those guys aren't cheap either. Choi Kan-sung spots a woman who's a tank, the most affordable at that level, but her description calls her a coward. Our guy is unsure what to think about those comments. Maybe it's because she backs out of contracts a lot. Out of sheer curiosity, he decides to hire her. So, he contracts the mercenary Lucia for 180 minutes. When she shows up, express her gratitude for being chosen. Then she inquires about the location of the enemy. Choi Kam-sung tells her there aren't any right now. Lucia wonders why he called her, and he says he just has some questions. She figures it's probably his first time. Choi Kam-sung admits he just unlocked this feature. Lucia assures him she'll answer whatever she can and sets her gear down. Choi Kam-sung is curious about what mercenaries actually are. She explains they're all players, just like him. Lucia tries to clarify further. They're all players who have a unique ability in common. They can all buy and sell. He asks if portals appeared in her world and why. Lucia confirms they did, but she doesn't know why. If he wants more details, he'll need to hire a legendary rank mercenary or higher. Chances are, no heroic level mercenary knows the answer. Choi Kam-sung shares that in his world, portals showed up 20 years ago. Even after the second cataclysm, things are relatively stable. He's curious about when the next event might occur. Lucia mentions that, as far as she's aware, 2 is the limit. There might not be another one for 20 years, but she can't promise anything. Choi Kam-sung asks why she thinks that. The mercenary explains that 40 years after the first cataclysm, her world was overrun by monsters. Lucia admits her profile labels her as a coward who avoids battles. Our hero wants to understand why that's the case. She confesses she's considered a coward because she fled her own world. In her previous world, life was peaceful for everyone. But one day, a portal suddenly appeared in the heart of the capital. A horde of orcs stormed through. People had no choice but to grab their belongings and escape. Lucia, however, witnessed a white horse charging at the monsters. She even confronted a massive demon. But the beast was incredibly powerful. That was the moment she awakened. It marked her beginning as a level 1 player. She initially tried to max out her stats with accumulated points and upgrade her skills, but she ended up regretting that decision. So, she started racking up points by hunting and selling items and magic stones. She kept at it for 16 years, and eventually, she found a glimmer of hope. But then, the second cataclysm hit. Lucia couldn't handle the legendary monsters that kept appearing one after another. She was up against something way stronger, all by herself. A force field spread out, blocking any use of spatial mobility items or skills. With no other options, she went for her last resort to get away. Lucia tries to make a run for it from the monster. She grabs the dimensional teleportation item. The former paladin knew there was a high risk of ending up lost in another dimension, but she had no choice. With no other options, she activates the item. At first, she couldn't reach any dimension. Lucia found herself lost in the void between dimensions, in a place where absolutely nothing exists. Luckily, there was a mercenary system she could sign up for. Lucia explains that there's a system window that says the same thing. Choi Kun-sung checks it out. The protagonist's rank is rare, making him pretty valuable. Lucia mentioned she registered and waited, but hardly anyone hired her. Once, she tried to lower the rate for another player. All she wanted was to live in his world in return, but he turned her down. That's because the minimum rate is a whopping 1 million per hour. So, for a day, it racks up to 24 million, and in a month, it's around 700 million. Lucia mentions that one day, a player came up with a different deal. He wanted her to send him 24 million points daily. Choi Kun-sung is totally floored by this. The mercenary agrees, as long as they share the same ability. Lucia then extends her hand for a handshake. Choi Kun-sung accepts, though he's a bit puzzled. That's when he notices the massive amount of points she has to trade. The protagonist finds this whole situation pretty intriguing. Choi Kun-sung wonders if they can boost their points by trading with each other, but she tells him that's not possible. When a trade goes down, both sides lose an equal amount. The protagonist guesses she must have accepted the other player's offer, but she says she turned it down. Lucia explains that the system takes a 20% cut from every transaction. Choi Kun-sung recalls that this is indeed the case. She mentions that over time, things only got worse. That's when the same person decided to hire her again. The protagonist figures that's when she finally took the job. Yep, that's exactly what she did. She hunted monsters to pay back the 24 million her buyers had spent on her. Even if she battled all day long, she always ended up 4 million short. But she had no other option. Luckily, she managed to squeeze in some rest and sleep while hunting. Even if she could only save around 5 million points each day. But her employer's greed just kept growing, forcing her to break the contract. After that, she wasn't hired again. Until now. She says she can't handle even 3 more months, so she wants to make a request. Her minimum rate is 24 million, and she promises to send it daily. Lucia vows to fight on any battlefield. All she asks for is permission. The protagonist asks for some time to consider. She agrees, but mentions she doesn't have much time left. Lucia vanishes once more. Choi Kun-sung finds himself alone in the cave again. Our protagonist is totally clueless about what to do next. So, he decides to open up the system, and brings Lucia back into the picture. The mercenary thinks he made a smart move, but before diving into anything else, he has a question for her. Lucia can tell he's itching to know about her skills. So, she's ready to show off her status window. Lucia mentions she'll reveal her level and stats. The protagonist is eager to check out what she's got. As he gets closer, she pops open her status window. Turns out, she's seriously powerful. Her total stats exceed 3 million, putting her at around level 700. Right now, Lucia's a bit stronger than him, but Choi Kun-sung is confident he'll soon outpace her. She's definitely packing some rare and heroic rank skills. There must be some epic monsters out there if people are hiring mercenaries like her. Lucia asks if he's impressed with what he saw. Choi Kun-sung says he wants to set up a temporary contract for now. Basically, he'll call her in for dungeon runs. Once the hunt wraps up, so does her contract. So, every time he heads out to hunt, she'll be right there with him. Lucia agrees, saying it's a solid arrangement. Then, she disappears again. So another day, another dungeon adventure. Lucia kicks things off with an active skill, drawing all the monsters' attention to her. She follows up with a defensive spell. Suddenly, there's a massive black explosion. The protagonist can't help but think how convenient this all is. Lucia is slicing through these creatures like they're nothing. Her fighting style is totally different from his. She activates the skill once more. Choi Kun-sung thinks they make a great team. Meanwhile, he's taking out monsters his own way. One beast gets sliced clean in half. For now, the battle's wrapped up. Choi Kun-sung mentions they've completed the mission for now. Lucia says she really enjoyed this hunting ground. She points out that in other worlds, there are lots of challenges, like too many players crowding the same spot. Plus, the hunting grounds had noble owners. Adventurers had to pay steep fees to get in. This even makes her wonder about something. She starts questioning if the protagonist is a monarch here. Choi Kun-sung says he's just doing his job, cleaning up the area. Lucia feels happy to be of help. Our hero promises to call her again, but once more, she disappears right before his eyes. Fast forward a week, Lucia's racking up achievements at an insane pace. She was pulling in 10 million points a day from hunting. Now she's tripled that, hitting 300 million a week. The protagonist is thrilled to see her doing so well. Lucia is super pleased with her progress. Meanwhile, he's feeling a bit guilty for raking in hundreds of millions daily through his tech. The mercenary approaches him. Lucia wants to ask him something. She noticed he's got some skills in close combat too. The mercenary is curious if he plans to keep blending both fighting styles. The protagonist is all in, saying that's definitely his plan. But she points out he's never really learned proper swordsmanship. So, she suggests he hire a sword master to truly master the blade. Choi Kun-sung asks why she thinks that. Lucia explains he's too rigid, and he can't afford such a flaw. Because against heroic rank humanoid monsters and above, his attacks just won't cut it.